Chapter 1369. The nine-colored deer galloped between the clouds and the moonlight. The woman on its back seemed to be deep in thought. The two seemed to melt into the moonlight. The nine-colored deer turned around and said, "Softy, I know you admire that kid, but a green jade lot is too valuable." Ruan Yaozhu smiled and said, "Didn't he say he borrowed it?" Will he return it just because he borrowed it? Even if he does, it's to curry favor with you so that you can take care of him in the future. I've seen many people like him. Ruan Yaozhu was surprised and said, "How can that be? He has such a high cultivation, but he still takes pity on a bunch of beggars. He doesn't use violence when he is offended, and he even regrets killing a peach tree. He knows the relationship between the white deer country and me, but he still flew into a rage and risked offending me and the myriad nature sect to teach that muddle-headed ruler a lesson. He didn't kill him because of a moment of pleasure. How can such a person be the kind of person you say he is? I only said a few words, and you're already saying so much. Don't you find it annoying?" Ruan Yaozhu said, "Am I wrong?" The nine-colored deer shook its head and said, Fine, you always have a point. I always measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain." Ruan Yaozhu asked curiously, "Do you hate him that much? But didn't you say that he has the bloodline of a Qilin? He should be pleasing to you." Sigh, a Qilin is a benevolent beast. No wonder he has such a benevolent heart. I knew you were heartless. You've long wanted to get rid of me and find a Qilin as a mount. Ruan Yaozhu covered her mouth and laughed. Yes, a pity he isn't a Qilin. She suddenly realized that this bad guy was a little strange and blushed slightly. The nine-colored deer pondered and said, "It's strange. Apart from the Qilin's aura, he seems to have some other aura, but it doesn't feel like a human's. It makes me feel a little uneasy. Sigh, if he really is a Qilin, then I don't have to worry about anything. But he is still a human. Bloodline is bloodline, and the human heart is the human heart. One must not have the heart to harm others, but one must be wary of others, especially those stinky men. You can't guess how many bad intentions they have in their hearts. I'm just pouring some cold water on you, lest you get too excited and get tricked." Ruan Yaozhu smiled and said, "Shouldn't I be happy to meet such a person? There were already too many bad people in this world. If good people were guarded against each other and didn't trust each other, how sad would that be? I am willing to believe in him, even if he disappoints me one day." The nine-colored deer said, "I really can't do anything to you, but I'll help you keep an eye on him. If he dares to disappoint you, I will definitely not let him off. Then I'll have to trouble you. I believe we'll meet again soon." Ruan Yaozhu smiled and stroked the nine-colored deer's neck. As if recalling something terrible, he frowned and said, "The entrance examination this time seems to be hosted by Senior Lution." The nine-colored deer's interest was immediately piqued. "Huh? It's that old gambler. That'll be interesting." Ruan Yaozhu sighed and said, The entrance examination this time seems to be at Blackwater Bay's Yuan Fused Mountain. Oh, it's there. Furthermore, Lution is the chief examiner. Those who participate in this examination will be in trouble. Unfortunately, they will become gambling tools. Jiu, turn around. Let's go to the primordial magnetic mountain. I want to persuade senior brother Lu again. The entrance examination was related to the future of the entire myriad nature sect. How can you use it to gamble? You've been persuading him since he first joined the sect. It's already been 1,000 years, and you still won't give up? Whether he listens or not is up to him. Whether he persuades or not is up to me. Sigh, what a piece of wood. And it's hollow. The nine-colored deer shook his head helplessly. He turned around and galloped toward the west. As he walked in the pitch-black cave, Li Qingshan suddenly had the illusion that he had returned to the Nine Prefectures world and the underground cave. The strong disturbance of the earth-fiendish magnetic field affected the magic power in his body and even the operation of his small world. However, he was not underground at the moment. He was just walking in a mountain range. He could still clearly remember the scene of this mountain range from the sky not long ago. A black mountain that stretched for hundreds of miles was like a black dragon winding its way into the sea. Not a single blade of grass grew on the mountain, as if it was made of black iron. The mountain range sank into the bay, dyeing the seawater pitch black. Thus, it was called Blackwater Bay. However, the name of this mountain was not Primordial Magnetic Mountain, but Black Dragon Mountain. Primordial Magnetic Mountain was just a name. A mountain made of stones was called Stone Mountain, and a mountain rich in copper was called Copper Mountain. This primordial magnetic mountain also produced a type of mineral, primordial magnetic iron, which could be used to create magical weapons that could break through true Kong armor. It was a very valuable mineral. However, it was not easy to mine this mineral. The Earth-fiendish magnetic field would make a cultivator as weak as a mortal, and they would not be able to use their divine telekinesis to explore. The Myriad Nature sect clearly knew how to make use of the interns. The examination this time was to use 3 days to walk from one end of the mountain range to the other. At the same time, they had to collect as much primordial magnetic field as possible. After 3 days, they would arrive at the agreed location. As long as they handed over a piece of primordial magnetic field, they would pass the examination. After that, they would become a glorious servant or servant. However, the message conveyed by the direct disciple named Lution was filled with malice. At that time, there were already more than 1,000 people gathered in the open space in front of the mountain. There were men and women, young and old, and their cultivations varied. Some of them had been waiting there for a whole month. Seeing that the examination was about to begin, no one from the Myriad Nature sect had arrived. Li Qingshan suddenly looked up. The sky was flashing with golden light, and it was rapidly enlarging. With a loud bang, sand and stones flew everywhere, and the earth shook. A 3-legged golden toad descended from the sky. Li Qingshan raised his hand to block the wind and sand. When he looked up, he saw a pair of slender phoenix eyes. Because they were overflowing with a smile, they were almost squinting into 2 lines. It was hard to see the expression of the eyes clearly, and he could not even be sure if the person was looking at him or not. However, Li Qingshan felt like he was being watched. "My friends, you have waited for a long time. I am the examiner for this examination, Lution. Remember, not fu as in music, but u as in happiness. If you can pass this examination, you can call me Brother Lu from now on." The man sat on the 3-legged golden toad. He had phoenix eyes, a hooked nose, and thin lips. There were 3 rings on each of his hands, all of them of different styles. There was also a golden necklace around his neck, and he was wearing an extremely tacky silk robe. He was dressed in jewels, but they did not match his attire at all. He looked like the foolish son of a rich landlord who wished he could wear everything he owned. However, Li Qingshan had a feeling that this Lution was undoubtedly a Renhuang, and he was much more dangerous than any of the cultivators who had passed the 5th tribulation, be it Chuo Long, Ruan Yaozhu, or that Emperor Li of the Hungry Ghost Realm. But this is clearly the first time we met. Why is he staring at me? Did he give himself away, or was it just my imagination? The 3-legged golden toad opened its mouth and let out a thunderous cry, almost shattering the eardrums of those who heard it. Lution said with a smile, "Well, those who are participating in the assessment, throw in your bookmarks. If anyone is willing to feed this treasure of mine with gold, I will thank him." The cultivators stepped forward one after another and threw their bookmarks into the mouth of the golden toad. There were nearly 1,000 mysterious wooden bookmarks, hundreds of brass bookmarks, and more than 20 silver bookmarks. Only the cyan jade bookmarks were the least, with only a few bookmarks. Every bookmark holder attracted everyone's attention. However, Li Qingshan had a feeling of being monitored. Ever since he came to the human realm, it seemed that he had always encountered this feeling. It was really terrible. After entering the Myriad Manifestations sect, he must quickly find the path to the ultimate, and at the same time, improve his cultivation. There were obviously many rich people among the cultivators. Many people took out a large amount of gold from their sumeru rings and fed it to the golden toad. Yamcha smiled in greeting, making those people feel flattered. The people who came later would more or less take out a little gold, and those who didn't have it would borrow from the people around them. However, in Li Qingshan's view, this guy always had a smile on his face. He threw the cyan jade bookmark and wanted to turn around and leave. Lution suddenly asked. Hey, kid, don't you have any gold? Sorry, I don't have any. Chapter 1370. Very good. Very good. Ha. Lution suddenly burst into laughter. His mask-like smiling face seemed to have come to life. However, it silenced everyone present. They were worried that Li Qingshan's answer had angered this person. Li Qingshan saw the situation and felt a little sad for them. The laughter of a superior was enough to incite fear in the inferior. However, Lution didn't seem to be hostile. Instead, he looked at him with a gaze that made Li Qingshan feel disgusted, like a human looking at an interesting animal that could bring him some benefits. Under the gaze of the three-legged golden toad's cold, merciless eyes, Li Qingshan bowed to Lution and walked to the side. When everyone had put down their bookmarks, the three-legged golden toad closed its mouth again. Lution first introduced the contents of the test, then suddenly changed the topic. Everyone must know that in my myriad appearance sect, no matter what level of cultivation you have, you must start as a servant. After accumulating a certain amount of contribution, you will be promoted step by step: attendant, study companion, master, and finally, a true disciple. Every step has many benefits, no less than passing a tribulation and greatly beneficial to cultivation. The myriad appearance sect has always been known for its fairness. This time, I did not order you around for nothing. As long as you pass the test, this piece of yuan magnet will be your first contribution to the sect. The more you put in, the greater the reward. You might even be able to start as an attendant or even a study companion and earn a fortune. Apart from this, there is another great benefit waiting for you. After 3 days, whoever has the most yuan magnet will be the champion of this test and will be promoted 3 levels, directly becoming a master disciple from a servant. Not only will they be able to receive weapons, mounts, and residences, they will also be able to freely enter and exit the Heavenly Book Pavilion. If you add in the contribution of yuan magnet, you will not be far from becoming a master disciple. This is like reaching the heavens in a single step. The second place will be ranked I and will be promoted 2 levels to study companion. The third place will be third flower and will be promoted 1 level to attendant. This will save you a lot of time and energy. I hope that everyone will do their best and add a true disciple to the myriad appearance sect. This encouraging proclamation caused everyone's eyes to light up. No one entered the myriad appearance sect to be a servant. In particular, the few nascent soul cultivators who had undergone 3 heavenly tribulations were all determined to obtain it. Someone in the crowd suddenly asked, "Senior, can I ask if the contribution of the vital magnet has to be mined by ourselves?" The atmosphere froze. None of the people present were fools. They all knew what this meant. It wasn't his. Then, it could only belong to someone else. It could be prepared in advance, bought from someone else, or even snatched. The person who asked this question was full of malice. Everyone looked left and right, but they didn't know who was speaking. In the end, the suspects were the few nascent soul cultivators. Lution's smile didn't change. He spread his hands and said, "Everyone knows that all surveillance methods are useless in the Origin Magnetic Mountain. I can only ask everyone to work hard. However, due to the influence of the Earth-fiendish magnetic field, this was definitely not a competition with a great disparity in strength. The myriad appearance sect naturally encouraged their fellow disciples to be friendly. But since you haven't entered the myriad appearance sect yet, you naturally aren't bound by the sect's rules." The atmosphere became even more solemn. The spacious cave not far away was like the open mouth of a vicious beast. The hanging rock pillars were like fangs, waiting to devour flesh and blood. Everyone became vigilant and distanced themselves. Standing together with people they knew, there was no longer the peace and friendliness they had just now. Once they entered the cave, everyone around them could become their enemy. And the few people who had cast the green jade lots just now received especially many vigilant gazes. Li Qingshan relied on his harmless face and gentle and friendly temperament. Even the one who didn't receive much attention was also muttering in his heart, "He's deliberately provoking internal strife to make us kill each other. What is he trying to do?" With a weirdo like Ruan Yaozhu, the myriad appearance sect definitely isn't a demonic sect. Could it be to test one's temperament? But using this kind of method to test one's temperament is either cruel or stupid. The human heart is ever-changing and is always influenced by the environment. If someone purposely set up an extreme environment to dig out the so-called dark side of human nature, they can only be said to be extremely stupid. In the end, any conclusion they draw is no different from bullshit. Ugh. A shrill cry echoed in the deep and wide cave, pulling Li Qingshan back from his memories. Even though the feeling of being watched was much fainter now, it was still there. He could even imagine Lu Tian's mask-like smiling face. After experiencing what happened in Bailu country, he definitely wouldn't treat this feeling as an illusion again. That guy must be using some kind of method to monitor everyone in the divine essence-fused mountain, but why? He didn't know that when everyone entered the divine essence-fused mountain, outside the cave, 4 figures descended from the sky. There were 3 men and 1 woman, and they all had different temperaments. Some were cold and arrogant, standing with their hands behind their back. Some were mysterious and had intelligent eyes. Some were deep and silent, and some were calm and peaceful with anger on their faces. But all of them had a calm demeanor and were on equal footing with Lu Tian. Needless to say, all of them had undergone 5 heavenly tribulations and were human sovereigns. Even in the human realm, human sovereigns were powerful existences that were only a step away from becoming human immortals. Usually, they would cultivate separately and would rarely gather together unless something big happened. However, this kind of entrance test was not a big deal to the myriad phenomenon sect. It was indeed strange that so many direct disciples came to watch. Fellow brothers and sisters, watch carefully. The gamble is about to begin. Junior sister Ruan, stop glaring at me. Why don't we make a bet? Senior brother Lu, how can you do this? You'll get many people killed. Not many people can pass the test this time. The one leading will definitely be a vicious and despicable person. How are you going to explain this to the 2 sect masters? Ruan Yaozhu glared at Lu Tian. Although her voice was gentle, it was firm. The 9-colored deer raised its head proudly, ignoring the 3-legged golden toad beside it. The other 3 direct disciples looked like they were watching a good show. Senior brother Pai, who had a mysterious temperament, laughed. Senior brother Lu, you're in trouble this time. Ruan Yaozhu immediately pointed her spear at them. Senior brother Ren, senior brother Pai, senior brother Leng, you 3 are really too much. As direct disciples, how can you be so unrestrained? Not only did you not dissuade him, but you also made a bet with senior brother Lu. The 3 true disciples either kept their heads low and didn't speak, or looked up at the sky and laughed. They couldn't be more familiar with junior sister Ruan's temperament. In the entire Wanxiang sect, which true disciple hadn't been taught a lesson by her. They were simply too embarrassed to call themselves true disciples. Even the 2 patriarchs had been taught many lessons by her. Chapter 1371. Lu Dunxiao sighed. Sigh, how would I know she would come? But it doesn't matter. Accidents are part of the gamble, and it's the most wonderful part. As long as we can pull her in, everything will be fine. Are you kidding me? Would junior sister Ruan bet with you? Hee, believe me, there are no people in this world who don't like gambling, and there are also people who never gamble. Get ready, the gambling is about to begin. Lu Tian coughed twice and said, This is my job, I hope junior sister can respect it. The entrance examination has always been a survival of the fittest. Don't worry, we won't go as far as to start a massacre. After all, the myriad appearance sect is a righteous sect. How could we not care about the consequences? I promise you, as long as they can walk out of the mountain, I will give each of them a piece of primary magnet. I guarantee that they will pass the entrance examination. Alright. Ruan Yaozhu sighed. She could only do this much. According to the rules of the Wanxiang sect, every true disciple was responsible for a task, and no one else could interfere. Hopefully, the situation wouldn't get too bad. Pai Yangqiu blinked and said, Yo, junior brother Lu, are you so confident that you can beat us this time? Ren Aoyou said, Tell me, what do you want to bet this time? Leng Yuan was silent and seemed to be deep in thought. I'm sure you've already guessed it with your wisdom. It was very simple. It was to bet on the Zhuangyuan, Bangyan and Tanhua this time. I don't know any of these people, and the information I received is the same as yours. I guarantee absolute fairness and honesty. The odds will depend on the bet. Pai Yangqiu thought for a while and said, according to your rules, the strongest person will be the Zhuangyuan. However, this origin magnetic mountain has greatly reduced the gap between these people, adding countless variables to the equation. Ren Chuyu said, Humph, even if they're affected by the Yuan Ci mountain, a nascent soul cultivator is still a nascent soul cultivator. How can they be threatened by others? There's no need to consider these variables at all. In the end, the champion will definitely be one of these people. Leng Yuan said, I got it. That's right. If they all fail miserably, what's the point of cultivating? Le Tian laughed. Let's place our bets. According to the old rules, junior sister Ruan, are you really not going to play around? The four of them deliberated and chose their targets. Then, they placed down a large number of green jade lots. Each green jade lot represented a huge amount of resources. Compared to this, the bit of magnets they had to pay to ensure that all the cultivators who walked out of the Origin Magnetic Mountain passed the trial was like a small reward. Such a huge gamble caused the heartbeat of Ruan Yaozhu, who was also a true disciple, to quicken. She could not understand why these men were doing this. When the mystery was revealed, out of the 5 candidates, 4 of them had made completely different choices. The 3 of them looked at the name that Le Tian had chosen in unison and frowned, wondering if they had missed something. Ruan Yaozhu exclaimed in surprise, Li Qingshan. She asked doubtfully, why? This was also what the other 3 wanted to ask. Le Tian laughed and said, don't you know a kid of unknown origin? Do I like to bet on dark horses the most? Ren Chuyu said, don't put on airs. Hurry up and explain. What is it about this Li Qingshan that is worth your attention? According to common sense, he was the one with the least chance of winning. Even the female cultivator who didn't choose had a higher chance of winning than him. The final winner of this game was bound to be the strongest, most ruthless, and most cunning person. Lu Tian grinned and said, because he's the most evil. Ruan Yaozhu frowned and retorted, how could he be evil? Lu Tian pointed at his eyes with 2 fingers and said, I can tell at a glance that this kind of desperado who would bet everything he has on the table without hesitation. Alas, there are fewer and fewer people like this among the cultivators nowadays. They are all cowardly and overcautious fellows. This time my luck has come. As long as it is necessary, this kind of person can do anything. I wouldn't be surprised if he went on a killing spree inside. Ruan Yaozhu said firmly, you're wrong. He's not that kind of person. You know him? Ruan Yaozhu said, I met him once not long ago. The green jade lot for the trial was lent to him by me. I know him very well. He would never steal someone else's things for his own benefit. Pai Yangqiu sighed and said, it was a gift. Only you could do such a thing. If I didn't know you well, I would have suspected that you were interested in this kid. Ren Aoyou laughed and said, that would make me sad. How about it? Junior brother Lu, you failed miserably this time. Lu Tian touched his thin lips and revealed a sharp smile. Then, junior sister Ruan, do you dare to raise the stakes for your choice? Ruan Yaozhu shook her head and said, I only know that he is not the evil person you said. I don't know if he will become the first. Then I won't bet on the first. I'll bet on good and evil. If you win, all the green jade lots I win this round will belong to you. If I win, you will lose the same amount to me. Ruan Yaozhu said, I don't gamble. Pai Yangqiu laughed and said, you're too cunning, senior brother Lu. You won't lose anything if you lose. Ren Aoyou said indifferently, as if you have already won. Aren't you looking down on us a little too much? Leng Yuan threw out a bunch of green jade lots and said, if you win, it's junior sister Ruan's. If you lose, it's mine. Interesting, count me in as well, and me too. In an instant, the stakes doubled again. The value was enough to move a human immortal. Ruan Yaozhu was at a loss. You guys? I don't want to bet, 9-colored deer suddenly shouted. Yaozhu will bet. Don't you believe in Qingshan? I believe he is not an evil person. He probably hasn't even killed an ant in his life. He will never steal other people's things. There are so many fools here. It would be a waste not to bet. If I win, I'll make a big profit. Brat, if you dare make me lose, I won't let you go. Lu Tian smiled and said, You guys want to rip me off. But you know, in gambling, failure often comes from false hope. All right, Lu Tian will bet anything. I'll accept this round. Pai Yangqiu said, but first place is easy to distinguish. What about good and evil? Don't you understand me? Since I dare to start, I must have a guarantee. Moreover, the essence of gambling lies in the process. If we just wait here, it will be too boring. Lu Tian took out a scroll and slowly unfolded it, releasing rays of light. In an instant, the entire yuan-fused mountain was projected, including every cave, every person, and even down to every stone. Low buzzing sounds could be heard from within, like the buzzing of mosquitoes. Listening carefully, one would be able to distinguish many human languages. With this map in hand, all the scenes and sounds of an area could be displayed. Pai Yangqiu was shocked. This is a replica of the heavenly vision, earthly hearing painting. Where did you get it? Of course I won it. It's just a replica. Lu Tian focused his gaze on one of the figures in the picture and said in an incomparably mushy voice, Qing Shan, oh Qing Shan, my good horse, don't disappoint me. To be continued, XH 118. Chapter 1372. Li Qingshan frowned deeply. An inexplicable unhappiness piled up in his heart, like a ball of fire burning in the dark. The feeling of being watched by the divine tool of reading books made him feel as if he was just a bug in a glass cage, being watched and toyed with by someone high above. However, he had to endure it, because this was the farthest distance from the equality of all in the cultivation world. Mortals, whether rich or poor, were still human. They had their own fate of aging, sickness, and death. At most, they had a lifespan of 100 years. Cultivators, on the other hand, could rely on their own efforts to transcend aging, sickness, and death, and even fate. The difference between them was a whole realm, and they were like two different species. If there was a difference of two realms, be it in strength or lifespan, it would be the same as the difference between a human and a bug. Senior, wait for me. Wait for me. Li Qingshan was deep in thought when a ball of fire jumped and caught up from behind. The fire couldn't illuminate the wide mine, and the jagged rocks were like monsters baring their fangs and claws. Zhu Yingkai was like a frightened child, running with the torch and panting. Do you want to draw over the earth baleful beasts? Li Qingshan turned around and glanced at him indifferently. Only then did Zhu Yingkai come to a screeching halt. He covered his mouth in fright. He felt like the current Li Qingshan was different from before. Only when the firelight reflected his figure on the rock wall behind him did he suddenly realize he was actually so large, even terrifying. He instinctively wanted to stay away, but when he thought of the terrifying earth-evil beast, he wanted to get closer. Peace and uneasiness, two extreme feelings surged back and forth, and he couldn't speak for a moment. From him, Li Qingshan saw the embarrassment of all the weak, the dilemma, and the uneasiness. At some point, he was afraid that he was the same. This couldn't be completely overcome by so-called faith or willpower, but it required real strength. If he wanted to improve his cultivation as soon as possible, he had to get first place in this assessment, raise his status in the nature sect, and try to get as many resources as possible. This was the only way to obtain enough information. First, if he entered the ultimate, and second, related to the Hui Dragon. He had a feeling that this matter wasn't over yet. He said seriously, from now on, you have to walk on your own. Senior. Zhu Yingkai let out an almost sorrowful groan. I saved your life. You helped me, and our grudges are settled. You don't owe me anything, and I don't owe you anything either. Follow me again. You will die. Li Qingshan said as he walked into the depths of the cave and disappeared into the darkness. Zhu Yingkai's expression changed. He was both fearful and reluctant to accept this, but in the end he was afraid to ignore Li Qingshan's warning and follow them. You are so strong, why can't you take me with you? Why can't you let me pass the test easily and become a disciple of the Wanxiang sect? This is obviously a piece of cake for you. I finally understand now. This is the path of cultivation. Cultivators are all cold and emotionless. In the future, Zhu Yingkai won't be relying on anyone. I'll show you, Li Qingshan, what it means to not take advantage of a poor youth. He stood where he was, his face alternating between red and white. He was both angry and excited. Suddenly, a strange low roar came from the darkness. It seemed to be very far away, but it also seemed to be hiding in the darkness behind him. He suddenly thought of something and hurriedly ran into the depths of the cave. I really need to get rid of this burden first. What do you think, junior sister Ruan? In any case, this can't be called doing good deeds. Lu Tian laughed heartily, feeling extremely pleased. Someone who dared to look him in the eye. How could he be soft-hearted and indecisive? Pai Yangqiu said, this can't be considered evil. They are neither relatives nor friends, so they have already done everything they could. Lu Tian grinned and said, the gamble has just begun. It's only just begun. I bet this guy is going to surprise us. Ren Aoyou snorted coldly, but the so-called gambling on good and evil. It's easy to talk about it, but whether or not there's a standard, if it turns into a battle of tongues in the end, it won't be pretty. Lu Tian said, no matter how many excuses there are, kindness is kindness. Evil is evil, and justice is in the hearts of the people. I won't distort the truth or sow discord for the sake of a gamble. This is my style of gambling. And with junior sister Ruan's character, is there any need to say anything? This can only be considered a good sign. Let's keep watching. Sooner or later, he'll reveal his true colors. Junior sister Ruan, don't be too sad then. Ruan Yaozhu lowered her head in silence, but her gaze was as resolute as ever. Li Qingshan went deep into the origin magnetic mountain. As far as the eye could see, there were strange rocks and jagged rocks everywhere. Some of them were not formed by ordinary mountains at all. The magnetic disturbances grew stronger and stronger, and the minor world had almost completely stopped functioning. All he could rely on was this body of flesh and blood. His powerful physique naturally gave him an absolute advantage, and even though he couldn't use almost all of his innate abilities, the strength of the earth still provided him with an endless supply of energy. However, if he wanted to dig out enough magnets to become first in this trial, he would still need a great deal of luck. The simplest method was to not dig at all and directly go to the other end of the mountain range, find the only path out of the mountain, and set up an ambush. With his strength alone, there was no way he would be a match for him. But in that way, he would be no different from those mountain bandits who blocked the road to rob others. If he really had no other choice, he wouldn't hesitate. But now, he still had to earnestly practice the Qilin way. In any case, he had just received a good person card not long ago. Therefore, he took a deep breath. At this time, several true disciples were looking at a corner of the heavenly vision and earthly hearing painting. The image was expanded to the maximum, and every movement could be heard clearly. There was a huge cave there, where 2 nascent soul cultivators had gathered. They were the 5 nascent soul cultivators chosen by Ren Yuyu and Pai Yangqiu. Their appearances and clothes were clearly visible. One had a handsome face and a tall body, like a distinguished young master. The other had a face like the bottom of a pot, a sturdy body, like a fiend. It seemed that they shouldn't have any relationship with each other. Even if they did, they would certainly be irreconcilable enemies, ready to fight. However, their conversation shocked Ruan Yaozhu. The fair-faced young man said, "Brother, what should we do?" The black-faced fiend said, "Brother, is there a need to ask? Since the rules allow it, we naturally have to make good use of it. Are we really going to dig in this cave?" The fair-faced young man asked again, "What about the 3 nascent soul cultivators?" If they know what's good for them, we don't have to make things difficult for them. In the future, we'll all be brothers of the same sect. Brothers of one heart. Our sharpness can cut through metal. 2 hands, one black and one white, tightly clasped together. Then, they ran side by side towards the end of the mountain range, ready to do the cost-free business that Li Qingshan had thought of. To be continued. XH 118. Chapter 1373. They are brothers. Ruan Yaozhu said in surprise. In the world of cultivation, blood brothers and sisters were very rare. Moreover, these two people had never communicated with each other before. Even their names were very different. How could she have imagined that they would have such a relationship? Even the cultivation techniques they cultivated and the auras they exuded were completely different? However, after careful observation, he found that the faces of these two people were indeed somewhat similar. Ren Aoyo snorted, "I have seen this kind of trick many times. If the two of them work together, no one will be their match in this mountain. The Zhuangyuan will naturally be born between them, and the elder brother will naturally be number one. Junior brother Pai, although you can see that they are brothers, you are mistaken about who is the elder brother and who is the younger brother." Pai Yangqiu smiled. "Senior brother Ren, how do you know that I am mistaken? How do you know that the elder brother will not give way to the younger brother? Moreover, there are no fathers and sons in a casino, let alone brothers. In the end, it still depends on who is stronger and more ruthless." Lu Tian clapped. "That's right, there must be a battle between these two brothers." "They are brothers." Ruan Yaozhu sighed. "What a greedy father and son will turn against each other." Pai Yangqiu laughed. "I am afraid you have never tasted what it is like to have brothers and sisters. Compared to strangers, only this kind of relationship is fought from childhood." Ruan Yaozhu sternly said, "How can I not have brothers and sisters? The Wanxiang sect's senior brothers and sisters are my brothers and sisters." Letian and the other three looked at each other, then shook their heads and laughed. If these words were spoken by someone else, it would simply make one laugh their heads off, and it would be so pretentious that it was disgusting. However, she was able to make one feel warmth in one's heart. If she did not see him as an elder brother, why would she persuade him every time they met? Gambling was his lifeblood. If others dared to talk to him like this, he would have taught them a lesson long ago. Now, he had to worry that she would be cheated by others. If Leng Yuan and the other two did not see her as a younger sister, they would not have thrown down such a huge bet and gambled for her. Of course, they wanted to force her into the game and teach Letian a lesson, but she did not have to take any risks and had the opportunity to make a fortune. "So, senior brothers, please stop gambling." Ruan Yaozhu took the opportunity to speak, completely ignoring the temptation of the green jade lots. She wanted to lead them to the right path. Pai Yangqiu laughed and sighed. "Sigh, I really can't stand you. A moment of carelessness, and a good gamble was almost dragged into the ditch by you. I don't treat these guys as brothers, especially Letian. I can't wait for him to lose his underwear." Letian said, "When I win, I'll reward you with a few blackwood lots." Renroya said, "Then let's see who the brothers are. Junior brother Lu, take a look at the black horse you chose. He's mining diligently. I'm still doing the same thing as these two." Ruan Yaozhu sighed. "He wouldn't do such a thing. If it's the latter, then the outcome of the bet between me and junior sister Ruan has already been decided. Moreover, I believe that with his ferocity, those two brothers are definitely not his match. This time we've really struck it rich." Letian placed his hands on the heavenly vision, earthly hearing, painting and rubbed it left and right. In an instant, the image focused on Li Qingshan. He was still walking unhurriedly in the cave, not mining. Instead of robbing people, he was singing at the top of his lungs. A loud and clear voice burst out from the heavenly vision, earthly hearing painting. "The great river flows east, the stars in the sky join the Big Dipper." Lu Tian's masked, smiling face was also startled. Ruan Yaozhu's eyes widened. "He's singing?" Renroya mocked. "Afraid of walking at night, singing to boost your courage?" Pai Yangqiu's heart stirred, and he blurted out, "No, he's trying to attract the earth fiend beasts." Letian shouted, "What? Is he crazy?" Monsters. This was the same word, but monsters and monsters were actually two different things. Monsters were all kinds of monsters. They could transform into human form, and they also had very high spirituality and intelligence. Monsters referred to those monsters with great strength but low intelligence, such as the mountain-cleaving monster. From a human's point of view, often, the two were mixed together, and the distinction between the two was not very clear. When monsters transformed into their original form and went berserk, they were not much different from monsters. Monsters also had the chance to develop intelligence and become monsters. But there were some very pure and true monsters. They had no intelligence at all, and were completely a special product of a special environment. They acted completely based on instinct. The most famous and the most powerful was the legendary void-swallowing beast. The void-swallowing beast was strong enough to destroy the world, and its power was not lower than a true immortal's. However, heavenly tribulations would never befall them. It was as if they were just a part of a natural phenomenon. Although they had terrifying power, they were similar to volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and tsunamis. They only had some characteristics similar to living beings, but they were not real living beings. The Earth Fiend Beast was such a monster. They would only be born in areas like the Yuan-fused mountain, where the Earth Fiend magnetic field was extremely strong. They would never leave, so they were called Earth Fiend Beasts. Earth Fiend Beasts used iron and stone as their bodies, and ate magnetic fields as their food. They did not know pain, fatigue, or fear, but they would attack all living beings indiscriminately. They usually only existed in the depths of the earth. It was as if heaven had discovered that the ordinary Earth Fiend magnetic field could not stop cultivators from exploring the edge of the world, so it specially arranged these terrifying guards. Legend had it that the strongest Earth Fiend beasts lived with the earth and slept in the deepest part of the earth. They could stop a true immortal. Naturally, there would not be such strong Earth Fiend beasts in the Yuan-fused mountain. Each of them had a moving magnetic field, and their bodies were indestructible. They could ignore almost all magical powers and spells, and were very difficult to deal with. Especially in an environment like the Yuan-fused mountain, even a human emperor would find it difficult. They were the biggest obstacle to mining magnetic fields, and they could not be killed. They were very troublesome. The Wanxiang sect's entrance exam, which was held once every 10 years, never paid attention to any mysterious tests or strange questions. As for whether you were strong or weak, kind or evil, or what characteristics you had, they did not care. Cultivators were all so busy. They did not have the time to carefully distinguish the strengths and weaknesses of a group of ants, much less to waste resources to specially set up an exam. The purpose of the exam was very clear. It was to let these cultivators use their lives to exchange for the precious resources that the sect needed. Those who succeeded would be accepted into the sect and become a part of the entire system. Those who failed would be cannon fodder. In any case, other people's children will never die. As the chief examiner this time, Letion merely used this foundation to turn this exam into an exciting gamble. He was prepared to make a lot of money from this. As for who lived and who died, who won and who lost, it did not matter at all. It was fine as long as the dark horse he had bet on was fine. But now that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, he could not sit still any longer. He shouted at the heavenly vision, earthly hearing painting, "Shut up!" He did not care whether Li Qingshan could hear him or not. He was like an ordinary gambler who had lost and was desperately blowing at a sieve. Li Qingshan naturally could not hear him. Even if he heard him, he would not obediently shut up. Of course, he knew that the earth evil beasts were the most dangerous part of this exam. They had no sense of sight, smell, taste, or touch. Only their hearing was extremely sensitive. Therefore, the most important thing to do in the Yuan-ci mountain was to keep quiet. However, Li Qingshan did the exact opposite. He purposefully sang at the top of his lungs, as it would be far too foolish to keep yelling. He did it to draw over earth demon beasts, as earth demon beasts definitely possessed extremely pure origin magnets. However, he would have to put his life on the line. Ren Aoyao smiled and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Lu, it seems that you, the Dark Horse, are going to die on the spot. You and Junior Marshal Sister Ruan will not be able to continue the gamble. It can only be regarded as a draw." Letion held his head with both hands and rubbed his hair into a pile of messy grass. "I was wrong. I only saw that he was a desperado, but I didn't see that there was something wrong with his brain. I bet that he has never seen an earth evil beast before." Once Li Qingshan was killed by an earth evil beast, then no matter who won, he would definitely lose. No, he is not a bad person. Yuan Yaozhu recalled Li Qingshan's last warning. If you follow me again, you will die. She finally understood. It's not that he doesn't understand the danger. If he doesn't want to rob others, but wants to get first place, this is the only way. Just now, it's not to get rid of a burden, but to put his life on the line so that the people around him can go to a safer place. This is because I have a kind heart. He would rather risk his life than hurt others. He would rather be misunderstood and resented by others than not save others. No matter what, I can't admit that such a person is a bad person. Pai Yongqiu clapped his hands and said, Junior Marshal Sister Yuan, well said. This time, someone is really going to lose his underwear. It's a pity for this good person. Tiskeiske, as expected, good people don't live long. Hee, I have all of them. I don't lower my head all the way. Accompanied by Li Qingshan's loud and clear singing, Li Tian shouted even louder, rolling on the back of the three-legged golden toad. Junior Marshal Sister, oh Junior Marshal Sister, you are so ruthless. Senior Marshal Brother only has this much. Yuan Yaozhu hurriedly waved her hand. Senior Marshal Brother, I don't want to win, just consider it a draw. She then said with some difficulty, I have a request. Li Tian suddenly stood up and said resolutely. Then, he returned to his mask-like smiling face, as if everything he did just now was just an act. I know you want to go in and save this kid. It's hard for you to break the sex rules for him. If this was an ordinary test, it wouldn't matter even if you just let him pass. But this is a gamble of mine, Li Tian's. I hope Junior Marshal Sister can respect me. Leng Yuan, who had been silent all this time, said, Junior Marshal Sister, as long as I am here, the sex rules cannot be broken. This is my duty. Of course, the Wanxiang sex entrance test cannot be interfered with, but for a true disciple, such a trivial matter is of no importance. Perhaps only Yuan Yaozhu would feel troubled. She couldn't just watch a good person get killed like this. Li Tian said, if he dies like this, then I admit defeat, and both bets are considered my loss. But as long as he still has one breath left, the bet must continue. This kind of bet is more interesting. At this time, after Li Qingshan finished singing one song, another came. His deep and magnetic voice echoed in the cave. Who begs who, spring and autumn only listen to the command of heaven and earth. Don't bet heaven's will is the highest. Chapter 1374. Fucking hell, the plot of reincarnation. Li Qingshan advanced triumphantly, one song after another. In the end, he was enjoying it. His voice was abnormally loud, causing the pebbles on the ground to tremble. His voice traveled along the cobweb-like cave, spreading throughout the entire Yuan-Ci mountain. One by one, the earth-fiend beasts awoke from their slumber. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and pricked up his ears. He heard a strange sound in the darkness, like the hum of electricity. There was also the sound of rocks colliding with each other. It was rapidly approaching from the depths of the cave, getting closer and closer. Li Qingshan blinked his eyes, suspecting that he was seeing things. The monster that was running out from the depths of the cave. Its body was pitch black and rugged, like a crude stone beast statue, with a hint of postmodern style. It had extremely thick limbs and sharp claws. There were no eyes, ears, or nose on its head, but it had a huge mouth filled with sharp teeth. It was not surprising that an earth-fiend beast would look like this, but this guy was only the size of a mastiff, not even reaching Li Qingshan's waist. Its movements did not seem particularly fast and powerful, but as it got closer, the magnetic field became more and more chaotic. The small world in his body was slightly affected. He rubbed his chin. Looks like this is an earth-fiend beast. This kid really has never seen an earth-fiend beast before. He really has never seen an earth-fiend beast before. Li Tian roared, slapping the back of the three-legged golden toad, producing the sound of metal clashing. The three-legged golden toad croaked, its eyeballs turning for a moment before closing again, ignoring its master's agitation. Pai Yongqiu smiled and said, such a small earth-fiend beast is indeed rare. I'm afraid it was just born from the earth-fiend magnetic mountain. If it was outside, it wouldn't be a threat to a nascent soul cultivator, but inside this divine magnetic mountain, no spells can be used. Li Qingshan's eyes narrowed. He released his aura, but the small earth fiend beast was not afraid, nor did it show any respect. Instead, it ran even faster, its cries becoming louder. When it was 100 feet away, it pushed off with its hind claws and pounced with all its might. Its heavy body glided across the distance of 100 feet easily, and its sharp teeth bit towards Li Qingshan's neck. With a bang, Li Qingshan casually lifted his right leg and stomped the little earthly evil beast's head hard into the ground. The little earth evil beast struggled with all its might. Its sharp claws scratched the ground, leaving behind white claw marks. But in the face of Li Qingshan's terrifying strength, it was naturally useless. Pai Yangqiu said, his physique is not bad. Since he dared to lure the earth evil beast over, he must have some skills. However, I think he's in trouble this time. Li Qingshan felt that as long as he exerted a little more strength, he would be able to crush its stone head. However, this was the first time he had seen such a strange species. Moreover, he still had to fight against more earth fiend beasts. Therefore, he squatted down and prepared to study it. A huge and ferocious shadow appeared behind him. It was more than 10 times larger than the small earthly fiend beast, but it floated silently in the air. It seemed to be weightless. It slowly opened its mouth, and each of its teeth was like a stalactite. It bit down towards Li Qingshan's head. Ruan Yaozhu's face was filled with anxiety. Even if he was a nascent soul cultivator, once his physical body was destroyed, his nascent soul would not be able to exist in the divine magnetic mountain for long. Very soon, it would be crushed by the earth fiend magnetic mountain. She secretly made up her mind. Even if she had to offend her senior brothers, she would still rush into the divine magnetic mountain. No matter what, she had to save his life and at least protect his nascent soul. A good person should not be unrewarded. However, she did not know that Li Qingshan was not a true nascent soul cultivator. Although he cultivated the human's cultivation technique Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction, he did not have the time to completely transform the power of that demon heart into a nascent soul. Therefore, there was no way for his nascent soul to escape. Lu Tian shouted, "Idiot, be careful behind you." Li Qingshan seemed to have heard his warning. He casually crushed the small earthly evil beast's stone head and turned around. "Oh, there's another big one here." He bit down with his sharp teeth and punched out. Boom! Rocks flew everywhere and hit the rock walls, causing sparks to fly. The big and small earthly evil beast's heads were crushed at almost the same time. Those stone heads that contained a large amount of metal were like clay chickens and pottery dogs under his punches and kicks. Lu Tian and the others were stunned for a moment. This brat had delicate features and looked harmless, but his physique was actually this strong. Moreover, his reflexes were quick and his attacks were fierce. Even now, there was not the slightest hint of nervousness on his face. It was as if he was eating and drinking at ease. Pai Yangqiu praised, "You really have some skills." Ren Aoyou said, "This brat has never seen an earthly evil beast before. He's going to suffer a big loss." Before he finished speaking, a strange change occurred. The small earthly evil beast that had its head crushed hugged onto Li Qingshan's calf tightly. Another head stretched out from its neck and bit down on his leg. Li Qingshan's vision darkened. A huge sharp claw came pouncing towards him. Before he could put up a defensive stance, he was sent flying by the claw. Boom, 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 boom. He broke several stalagmites in a row and smashed deep into the rock walls, burying himself under the rocks. Ruan Yaozhu cried out in alarm. Although nascent soul cultivators were strong, their bodies were far from being comparable to monster kings of the same realm. Especially under the influence of this yuan-fused mountain, they were even more fragile. If he were to take this claw head-on, his bones would probably be broken and his organs would be crushed. He patted the 9-colored deer and was about to rush into the cave to save Li Qingshan. However, a figure flashed in front of him. Lun Yuan blocked his way. His body was covered in cold air and formed an ice wall that was hundreds of meters tall. He seemed to be completely unaffected by the yuan-fused mountain. Ruan Yaozhu bit her lip. "Senior brother Lung, get out of my way." Lung Yuan said, "Junior sister, with me here, Don't even think about taking a step into the cave. The nine-colored deer transmitted its voice. Blockhead, oh blockhead, you're not cut out for fighting. I'm not much better. We definitely can't win against this Leng Yuan brat. It's over, my dark horse. Lutian held his head as if he had lost his parents. Ren Chuyu smiled and shook his head. Give up, junior sister. It's too late for you to go in now. This brat has already been dismembered by the earth fiend beasts. Don't be sad, he can only blame himself for being too bold and inexperienced. Earth fiend beasts are all made up of rocks, so they have no weak points at all unless you can find the Yuan-fused magnet in their bodies. However, the Yuan-fused magnet could be in any part of the earth fiend beast's body, and it's said that it's constantly moving. If you want to kill an earth fiend beast, you have to destroy more than half of its body. Junior brother Lu, prepare to pay up. Wait, look. Pai Yangqiu pointed at the heavenly vision, earthly hearing painting. He's still alive. The pile of rocks exploded, and Li Qingshan stood up again. His clothes were tattered, but there were only a few shallow claw marks on his chest. The little earth fiend beast on his calf bit desperately, but it couldn't even leave a mark. That's more like it. If they were all as small as you, how many Yuan-fused magnets would there be? I'd have sung for so long in vain. Pai Yangqiu's expression kept changing. At this realm, to have such a physique, I'm afraid only eldest senior brother who cultivates the true dragon scripture and eldest senior sister who cultivates the black tortoise scripture can compare. As long as he doesn't seek his own death, there's nothing in the Yuan-fused mountain that can threaten him. Ren Chuyu said, this brat either cultivates some special technique or has some inhuman bloodline. He's really well hidden. I can't even tell from his appearance. Lutian, how did you figure it out? His comment almost revealed the secrets of the heavens. Li Qingshan had cultivated the 9 transformations of demons and gods and had various inhuman bloodlines, which was why he had such a strong physique. Lutian laughed heartily. I can only tell that he's a ruthless person. I can't tell his technique or bloodline, but such a strong and fierce temperament can't be cultivated in a cave abode. As expected of the dark horse I've chosen. Well done. At this moment, Li Qingshan swept his leg horizontally and kicked the earth fiend beast that was pouncing at him away. The little earth fiend beast was also smashed into pieces. With a loud boom, the earth fiend beast's head was smashed again. It crashed heavily into the rock wall, and cracks spread all over its body. The rocks on the ceiling shattered and fell down. Among the flying rocks, Li Qingshan casually caught a walnut-sized small stone that was as black as iron, but it also shone faintly. It was the Yuan-fused magnets in the little earth fiend beast's body. The first small piece and the second big piece. Li Qingshan was in a good mood. He smiled faintly, looking more and more like a bright young man. The earth fiend beast didn't know fear or pain. It pounced at him again. Its terrifying figure and invisible magnetic field were the nemesis of cultivators. But this time, no one doubted the outcome of the battle. To be continued. Chapter 1375. It was impossible for a person to hide everything about themselves, especially when they were doing what they liked to do the most. Please go to Qiushu to read this book. Even though Li Qingshan felt that he was being watched, he did not plan to change his way of doing things. In a battle that he was used to, there was a kind of aura that came out of him. Other than Ruan Yaozhu, who was not good at fighting and was still a little confused, the other 3 true disciples could clearly feel it. It was the aura of someone who had experienced hundreds of battles and killed decisively. He must have gone through countless life and death battles to have this kind of confidence and calmness. They secretly hated themselves for being fooled by this harmless face. They looked at Lutian in unison. You've made the right bet again. No matter what the final result was, this Li Qingshan was indeed the most qualified person to be the first. Lutian gently stroked the 3-legged golden toad beside him and smiled. I have a feeling that I can win both of these bets. The 3 people's faces darkened. A man with this kind of aura must have had a lot of blood on his hands. How could he be a kind person? It would not be strange if he killed everyone in the Origin Magnet Mountain. Junior sister Ruan was probably fooled by that brat this time. If that's really the case, I won't forgive him. It's fine if Letian wins, but he dares to lie to junior sister Ruan. He really doesn't know what's good for him. Li Qingshan still did not know that because of a random bet, he was about to become enemies with the 3 true disciples before he even joined the nature sect. Ruan Yaozhu raised a fair finger and said seriously, "Senior brother Lu, you can only win 1 round at most." "Ah, then let's wait and see." Li Qingshan completely pulverized the earth emanation's beast. He did not defeat or kill it. Instead, he smashed apart every single piece of its body with his punch until he found the origin magnet. It was much bigger than the origin magnet in the small earth emanation's beast's body. It glowed in the darkness. He played with it in his hand and closed his eyes to sense it. He was deep in thought. In this origin magnet mountain, the Sumeru ring could not be opened. He casually threw the origin magnet into the basket behind him. That was when he entered the cave. The 1,000 Elephant sect also gave everyone a pickaxe for mining. A strange buzzing sound came from the depths of the cave again. More and more earth emanations beasts were pouncing over. He slung the pickaxe over his shoulder and strode forward, singing loudly. "Go, go, go! Come with me, man." He had traveled all over Green Mountain, but he didn't grow old. A young man with lofty aspirations has no need to worry. The several successor disciples looked at each other. Although the tone of the lyrics was strange, there was an indescribable sense of carefreeness and heroism. Ren Aoyou said, "This kid is indeed very interesting. He has the potential to become a true disciple." Lun Yuan asked warily, "Can you tell who he is?" Ren Yu said, "How vast is the human world? There are also the ascenders of the 3,000 worlds. How can we see the origins of all of them?" Lu Tian's mood was on a roller coaster ride. Her face was flushed with excitement, making her mask-like smiling face come alive. "This is too exciting, too interesting. Right or wrong, success or failure, gain or loss, the unfathomable will of the heavens, and the unfathomable will of the human heart, everything was in this game." Junior sister Ruan. "Have you ever felt the joy of gambling?" Ruan Yaozhu pouted and shook her head. "Forget it, you little monster." Lu Tian rubbed her hands. Next, my good horse only needs to defeat these earth emanations beasts one by one, and it will be a success. If I kill a few more unlucky fellows and take their elemental magnets for myself, that would be even more perfect." Li Qingshan quickened his pace and sprinted through the winding mine. He did not hesitate to choose every fork. He encountered another 2 earth emanations beasts along the way, but he dealt with them in no time. There were 2 more elemental magnets in his basket. The biggest one was almost the size of a peach. "He's going down continuously." Pai Yangqiu and the others could clearly see from the heavenly vision and earthly hearing that Li Qingshan was going down almost every fork. He had chosen to go down, which greatly violated the basic principle of exploring the elemental magnet mountain. The deeper one went into the elemental magnet mountain. The stronger the earth emanations magnets, the more earth emanations beasts there would be, and the more dangerous it would be. Hence, if one chose a path, they would try to go up as much as possible. They would eventually travel along the mountain ridge, where they would not encounter any earth emanations beasts. If they really could not find any elemental magnets, they would take the risk to go down. Most of the cultivators who participated in the trial were advancing along this path. Countless battles had already occurred. If this were any other time, this would be the highlight of this gamble. Perhaps they would even make a few small bets as an afterthought. However, right now, no one cared whether they lived or died. The true disciples' gazes were all focused on the lone figure running down. Ren Yu frowned and said, "What is he trying to do?" Lung Yuan said coldly, "He's courting death." Lu Tian began to ravage her hair again. "Idiot, you already have an absolute chance of winning. Why are you still going down? Go back up." After sprinting for a while, Li Qingshan suddenly stopped and smiled. He was standing on a cliff, and in front of him was an empty space. An underground cave that was 1,000 feet tall and as big as 10 soccer fields appeared before him. It was almost impossible for such a large cave to appear in an ordinary mountain range. This was already the deepest part of the elemental magnet mountain. If he continued forward, he would be out of the mountain, and if he continued down, he would be deep underground. He leapt off the cliff. Specks of light flickered in the darkness. There were specks of light everywhere above his head and below his feet. They were like a resplendent starry sky, making him forget where he was, as if he was in a boundless void. These were the specks of light from the elemental magnets. They were half buried in the walls, and some were even exposed. It was possible to imagine how many ores there would be under the walls. However, under this dreamlike scenery, there was a great danger. When Li Qingshan entered the depths of the cave, the stars silently faded into the darkness, no longer shining. Even though he did not make a single sound, he had alarmed this silent land, as well as the huge beasts slumbering in the darkness. Even though the spirit turtle's premonition was almost completely ineffective, the chilling sensation was like needles stabbing into his skin, causing goosebumps to appear all over his body, secretly evoking the most primitive fear. The true disciples all stopped talking and stared fixedly at the heaven vision earth listen. They could see clearly that the craggy walls began to move, swallowing up the elemental magnets half buried in the walls. Sinister heads poked out one after another, looking in Li Qingshan's direction. This was not some elemental magnets, but the nest of the earth-fiend beasts. Li Qingshan arrived at the center of the nest. There was a strange rock that was 100 feet tall. He leapt onto the strange rock. Due to the angle, he did not see the elemental magnets that were almost the size of a watermelon embedded on the other side of the strange rock. They shone with an unusually bright light as they slowly sank into the depths of the strange rock. To be continued. Chapter 1376. Li Qingshan coughed at his fists. His coughs sounded like 2 claps of thunder in the silent cave. Ads. This site has changed to a new website, shorthand method. Strawberry, rumble, rumble, rumble. There was a commotion in the darkness, and the sound of rocks colliding rang out incessantly, surging towards him like a tsunami. Standing on the high stage, Li Qingshan took a deep breath, opened his arms and said loudly, "Dear friends, how are you? How are you? How are you? How are you?" His voice reverberated wildly in the cave, and what responded to him was a strange buzzing sound that swallowed his voice in an instant. It was as if a surging sea had surrounded him on this isolated island. Pai Yangqiu said with certainty, "He's crazy." Ren Aoyou laughed and said, "No wonder junior brother Li likes to bet on dark horses. This bet is really interesting. Even if you lose, it's worth it." Up until now, he'd already firmly won the first round, and once the Earth Evil Beast killed this fellow, victory in the second round would be within his reach. Lu Tian smiled bitterly. "But it seems a little too exciting." Ruan Yaozhu's face was full of concern. "Now, Li Qingshan, would like to present a song to everyone. A man should strengthen himself." Li Qingshan bowed slightly, opened his right arm and bowed. The smile on his face was wild and arrogant. The boulder under his feet was shaking. No, the entire cave was shaking. Li Qingshan furrowed his brows, puffed out his chest, and sang loudly, "Arrogant and haughty, I laugh at the waves." The group of beasts roared and pounced at him from all directions. The strange stone under his feet cracked open into a ferocious mouth that could swallow an elephant. "My blood is as hot as the red sun." Li Qingshan leaped into the air and headed straight for the dome. The beasts collided with one another beneath his feet, and the deafening sound was like a landslide. There were sinister rocks and overlapping magnetic fields everywhere. It was as if he had fallen into the abyss of hell. Boom! A huge, hideous head broke through the dozens of earth evil beasts that were blocking its way, completely breaking free from the pull of gravity and biting towards Li Qingshan at an unbelievable speed. Li Qingshan flew into the air and slowed down. In this place, he could not use any of his magic power or demonic aura. Unless he disregarded the monitoring gazes and spread his phoenix wings, he would only end up in the mouth of this whale-like earth-fiend beast. Guts as if made of iron. Li Qingshan turned around and stepped on the huge beast's teeth. In the moment the huge mouth closed, Li Qingshan's eyes widened. Once again, he leaped high into the air and reached the ceiling of the cavern. Then, he threw a punch at the black iron stone pillar that was over 100 feet in weight. Bone like diamond, the fist collided with the iron stone, producing the sound of metal clashing. With a bang, the stone pillar broke off from the dome and fell. It smashed towards the pursuing giant beast. Boom! The giant beast was smashed to the ground. Smoke and dust flew everywhere, and the cave shook violently. Li Qingshan made use of the counterforce to push himself to another hanging stone pillar. Just when he was about to repeat the same trick, a strong wind came from above his head. An earth evil beast woke up from the rock wall of the dome and pounced on him who was unable to dodge in midair. His singing was interrupted, and the man and the beast fell to the ground rapidly. Ferocious fangs filled his vision. He glanced at the ground from the corner of his eyes. Hundreds of earth evil beasts of all sizes were waiting with their heads held high. Even if there were no such dangers, falling from a height of 100 feet, even a body of steel would break. No matter how strong his physique was, he was not invincible. Moreover, he was in a place like this, in a world like this. An intense fall would cause him to lose his ability to fight back for a short period of time. It would be hard for him to escape the fate of being torn apart by the beasts. Pai Yangqiu said with certainty, "He's finished." Perhaps, from the moment he entered the cave and challenged the beasts, he was destined to end up like this. This was the fate of those who overestimated themselves. No, he's still smiling. He's still smiling. Li Tianmoi used the vision of heaven and hearing of earth and zoomed in on Li Qingshan's face. As expected, at the critical moment of life and death, he fell rapidly. The smile on his face became wilder and wilder, wilder and wilder like the wind. With an even louder voice, he continued to sing, "Breadth of mind, vision of 10,000 miles." He opened his arms and gave the earth evil beast a big hug. He twisted his body in midair and took the upper position. Boom! Rocks flew everywhere. The ground cracked, and the earth evil beast was smashed into pieces. With his black hair fluttering in the wind, Li Qingshan grabbed the third piece of primary magnet and threw it into the basket behind him. He laughed and sang, "I vow to work hard and be a good man." With a loud roar, he pounced on an earth evil beast. He stabbed the tiger demon steel's heart into its chest and took out another primary magnet. The earth evil beast immediately froze on the spot like a stone statue. To be a good man, I must work hard every day. The buzzing sound drowned out his singing. Dozens of earth evil beasts covered his body. In the next moment, an even louder singing voice rang out. A hot-blooded man, hotter than the sun. He stepped on the ground with his bare feet. His majestic figure seemed to have transformed into a ferocious beast made of steel. His hands opened up like sharp claws. With a loud roar and a tiger demon steel's heart, an earth evil beast froze. It was like a ferocious tiger fighting a pack of wolves. The pack of wolves was fierce, but the tiger's claws were even more deadly. The corpses of the wolves littered the ground, unable to approach. The true disciples were all dumbfounded. Pai Yangqiu said in disbelief, "How did he do it?" The most troublesome thing about the earth evil beasts was that they had no vital points. Sometimes, they would have to continue fighting even after half of their bodies were destroyed. It was fine if they fought alone, but once they surrounded them and couldn't escape, it would be like falling into a stone mill. They would be crushed into pieces very quickly. However, Li Qingshan used the common, black tiger steel's heart to subdue his enemies and forcefully carve out a path of survival. The only explanation was that he could instantly determine the position of the primary magnet in the earth evil beast's body. However, even the human emperors present couldn't do this. Lu Tian shook his head slowly. "I don't know. This dark horse is so dark that I don't even know how to explain it." He suddenly became excited and danced. "But well done, Qingshan. Kill them and let them have a taste of your power." Ruan Yaozhu heaved a sigh of relief. The nine-colored deer muttered to itself, "Does this guy really have the Qilin bloodline? Looking at his fighting posture, it doesn't seem like it. It's as if he's a completely different person. It's terrifying. However, it doesn't matter. As long as he can help me win this round, I'll do anything." Ren Chuyu said, Don't be happy too early. It's still unknown whether this guy can survive or not. This cavern was connected in all directions. It was like a huge sound system. The loud and clear singing, the loud sounds of fighting, and the chaotic magnetic field attracted all the Earth evil beasts on the primary magnet mountain. At every moment, Earth evil beasts swarmed into every cave entrance like a raging wave, turning this cavern into a huge arena. If he let his guard down for even a moment, he would die. Moreover, the strongest and most terrifying Beast King in this lair hadn't been destroyed yet. Boom! Huge rocks flew everywhere, crashing everywhere and even smashing a few small Earth evil beasts. Li Qingshan raised his head and gazed over. All he saw was the Earth baleful beast that the strange rock had transformed into emerge from the pile of rubble. It was basically unscathed. Its limbs were completely unfurled, and its body was even larger than before. It strode towards him with heavy steps, and the cavern shook with each step. Suddenly, it stopped and shook its head. With a crackling sound, electricity surged in its mouth, ready to be unleashed. Even though the spirit turtle had lost its premonition, Li Qingshan still felt a chill run down his spine. With an iron mountain lean, he smashed the Earth evil beast in front of him into pieces. He couldn't be bothered to pick up the origin magnets anymore. He sprinted on the rock wall, wanting to circle around to the back of the Beast King. The Beast King slowly turned its head. The electricity in its mouth burned even more intensely, and it suddenly spat out. A white light flashed and filled his vision. The cavern was as bright as day. Li Qingshan leaped and was immediately slammed into the rock wall by a huge force. Boom! The rock wall cracked and collapsed, forming a deep pit. The painstakingly collected origin magnets scattered all over the ground. He lay at the bottom of the pit. His internal organs were shattered, and his whole body was numb. He couldn't move, and he could even smell the smell of roasted meat. After what seemed like a long time, he finally heard a deafening boom. He could still vaguely see the twisted trajectory left by the electricity in the air. He could have dodged it with that leap, but the lightning seemed to have locked onto him. It suddenly changed direction and struck him heavily. Qingshan! Lu Tian cried out in pain, as if he was the one who had been struck. This was a technique that only an extremely powerful Earth evil beast could use. Even he wouldn't feel good if he was struck by it. Ruan Yaozhu's beautiful face turned pale, and she bit her lips subconsciously. Pai Yangqiu said, "The Earth evil beast's sense of hearing isn't actually hearing. In other words, it's closer to the nature of hearing. It's extremely sensitive to vibrations, and the real technique they use to lock onto their prey is the magnetic field. In such a narrow cave, it's impossible to dodge the lightning of the Earth evil beast. No matter how fast one's reaction is, it's useless. He's dead for sure." The horde of beasts surged like the tide, pouncing toward the immobile Li Qingshan. The Beast King's mouth once again gathered lightning. "Let Hai Tian gather energy for me." Li Qingshan slowly got up. His tongue didn't listen to him, and his singing was a little strange. The boundless earth was with him, and endless power flowed into his body through every pore. It was his only remaining innate ability, earth strength. In this deep cave, not only was he not affected by the Earth evil magnets, he became even stronger and more sensitive. He relied on this ability to sense the location of the origin magnets in each Earth evil beast's body. That was how he was able to kill them in one strike. A deep tranquility surrounded him, as if he was in his mother's embrace. He didn't feel any fear. He was the son of the earth. Once again, he leaped up and charged through the beast tide. "I'm going to create a new world for my dream." Stepping over the bodies of the Earth evil beasts, he pounced toward the ferocious mouth of the Beast King, diving into the boiling pool of lightning. Boom! Lightning exploded, and the picture of heavenly vision, earthly hearing, was also covered in a vast expanse of white. The true disciples all widened their eyes. When the white light gradually faded, they saw the terrifying Beast King, still in the posture of spitting lightning, standing motionlessly in the same place. However, there was no sign of Li Qingshan. Ruan Yaozhu asked in a trembling voice, Is he still alive?" Lu Tian said, "Look." A charred human figure walked out of the Beast King, mouth, holding a huge origin magnet in his hand. It was shining brightly in the darkness. Li Qingshan laughed, revealing his snow-white fangs as he looked down at the horde of beasts. Since you're a man, you should strengthen yourself. XH 118. Chapter 1377. Lu Tian cheered and raised his fists. Qingshan! 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 He bumped into the three-legged golden toad and shouted, "Invincible dark horse! Invincible dark horse!" Croak! The three-legged golden toad rolled its eyes and closed them again. Greater than over equal twirl greater than over equal Tuan Yao pressed her chest. This is great. She was excited and could not calm down for a long time, thinking that this was probably the feeling of gambling that senior martial brother Lu mentioned. Lu Tian pointed at Pai Yangqiu and the other two and smiled. You three, what do you think? It was the smile of the winner of the gamble. Is he really not an Azura? Pai Yangqiu was confused. He had been through quite a few battles in the past, and he had seen many existences even more powerful than Li Qingshan. However, he had only seen Azura warriors with such fervent passion for battle and the lofty sentiments where they could cast their lives aside. After all, cultivators pursued longevity. They had to avoid pointless battles and put an end to fights that they had no confidence in winning. They already had a very, very high status and a very, very long lifespan to enjoy. They would never easily gamble everything they had, even if the risk was very, very low. The gamble with Lu Tian was just a way for direct disciples to socialize and pursue excitement. No matter how bad the loss was, it was just a few green jade lots. There were always winners and losers in gambling. As long as one spent some time, they would be able to earn it back. However, Li Qingshan was not like that. He had ventured deep into the lair in the center of the mountain when he basically knew nothing about the earth-malevolent beasts. He had advanced triumphantly, risking the danger of being killed and fighting the beasts without the slightest sense of caution. His way of doing things did not resemble a cultivator at all. Such a fellow was simply unreasonable and could even be said to be extremely stupid. Did he not know that the slightest accident would ruin everything? The effort, the bright future, and his own life were all placed on the gambling table, waiting for fate to decide. Pai Yangqiu did not know that Li Qingshan had been through many dangers and life and death situations. The current situation was nothing out of the ordinary. If it wasn't for his courage and determination to disregard life and death, he would have already become a pile of bones. How could he have reached this step? He did not have a bright future to enjoy because the road ahead was even more dangerous. Soon he would enter the depths of the demon domain, facing demon god Xiongqi. Compared to that, what were a few earth evil beasts? If he had to avoid even this little bit of risk, then he might as well just slit his own throat and die. He had never thought of stopping, never thought of turning back, so he was willing to bet everything on it. He wanted to see if he had the luck to walk above the 9 heavens. If he really died on the way, then he should just accept his fate. At the very least, it wasn't because of cowardice and incompetence. Azuras don't know how to put on an act. Ren Aoyou still couldn't get over the fact that Li Qingshan behaved like an obedient child at the beginning. A hint of admiration flashed in his eyes. His gaze was no longer that of someone looking down at an insect trapped in a glass container from high above. Instead, he was treating him as a fellow Taoist who was worthy of being treated as an equal. She even began to admit in her heart that it was her eyesight that failed to see through his true appearance. At this time, Li Qingshan jumped down from the frozen giant beast's mouth and fought with the other beasts, ignoring the pain. Kuang Ge laughed arrogantly. The earth divine power provided him with an endless supply of energy, and as he gained a deeper understanding of the earth fiend beast's attack patterns, he was also becoming more and more skillful. The terrifying murderers were like a bunch of chickens and dogs in front of him. In the midst of his wild singing, it was as if a black whirlwind swept through the cave, crushing and crushing everything. Pai Yangqiu sighed. Why doesn't he go to the Azura path? Maybe he can become a child of destiny. He will immediately be valued by the generals of the Azura path. He will definitely have a better future than in the mortal path. Leng Yuan frowned thoughtfully, looking more and more unfathomable. Lu Tian laughed. Maybe he is attracted by junior sister Ruan's charm. Anyway, I will definitely win this round. If he is not the top scorer, I will swallow this heaven-seeing, earth-hearing painting. Ha! Ruan Yaozhu blushed. Senior brother, don't talk nonsense. What charm do I have? Anyway, no matter how much you win, you will have to return it to the 3 senior brothers. Nine-colored deer sighed. She knew it would be like this. She had never thought of winning the green jade lots from her senior brothers. Junior sister, don't you know what greed is? I hate people like you the most in gambling. Letian smiled slyly. But I don't think I will lose. Besides, this is a bet between me and you. Don't tell me the 3 of them have the nerve to ask for compensation from you? Junior sister Ruan, are you looking down on me? Or do you want me to be looked down upon by Letian? Ren Aoyo said unhappily. And little Lu, don't speak too early. There is still a long way to go before the end of the bet. Ruan Yaozhu pouted and lowered her head in silence. She seemed a little dull, but she was not someone who would be easily swayed by words. That's right. This Li Qingshan obviously did not prepare for this assessment. He knows very little about the Earth Evil Beast. He is completely relying on his strong physique to fight it. But after fighting the Earth Evil Beast, how much strength does he have left? But the 2 brothers are different. They are clearly prepared and do not care about the other nascent soul cultivators. They must have something to rely on. Moreover, they are waiting for the exhausted. Senior brother Le, the outcome is still unknown. Pai Yangqiu spoke frankly with assurance. How could they admit defeat before the results were out? But after witnessing Li Qingshan's ferocity, they did not have much hope. The 2 brothers had better not lose their minds. They could be considered lucky to have provoked a monster like Li Qingshan. Fine. I will let you 3 give up. Let's see what those 2 brats are doing. Letian smiled as he turned the picture of heaven's vision, Earth's hearing to the other side of the primal magnet mountain, locking onto the pair of brothers. He saw that they were busy guarding the only path out of the mountain, actively preparing something. It seemed like they were setting up a formation. However, in this essence-fused mountain, no matter if it was transcendence energy, arts, treasures, or formations, as long as it had the word transcendence in it, they would not be able to use it. Even though they were almost out of the mountain from where they were, and the influence of the earth-fiendish magnetism was beginning to weaken, ordinary formations would not be of much use. But when they saw the tools they were using to set up the formation, the eyes of the few true disciples lit up. Lutian was surprised and said, it's actually this formation. These 2 brats are indeed prepared. Not only was he not worried, he even smiled and said, not bad. There is a chance, a great chance. Ren Aoyo and Pai Yangqiu looked at each other and their expressions relaxed a lot. At least it proved that their eyesight was not too bad. The bet had only just begun. Ruan Yaozhu frowned. She did not expect the 2 brothers to be prepared to this extent. They were obviously planning to rob them from the beginning. Such sinister intentions made her very unhappy, but she could not help but worry about Li Qingshan's safety. They might not dare to attack a nascent soul cultivator. Chapter 1378. After an unknown period of time, the belly of the mountain quieted down again. Broken statues of earth-fiend beasts of all shapes and sizes stood tall in the darkness. Li Qingshan sat cross-legged and meditated on the path of the Qilin. Because after a fierce battle, the Qilin transformation showed signs of weakening again. Is there a need to be so calculative? After all, the things I killed weren't living beings. He increasingly felt that the Qilin path was not as simple as he had initially thought. As long as he did some good deeds, his cultivation would rise rapidly. The Qilin took pity on the common people. However, even if he killed a peach tree and saved a group of beggars, it would still go against the Qilin path. Because human lives were not as noble as plants. Even if he did not have to sacrifice any lives, the people he saved would still have to devour other lives. The so-called doing good deeds and accumulating virtue were just the kindness and virtue of humans. Perhaps what he really needed to do was to follow the path of nature, forget right and wrong, walk in the air, and look down on the common people. The so-called path of extreme benevolence was actually so heartless. In the darkness, he suddenly opened his eyes and estimated the time. About a day and a half had passed. He had to leave the mountain within 3 days and hand over all the primary magnets he had obtained. Looking up, he could see that the entire cavern was filled with shining magnets. This battle was really fruitful. However, the basket used to store the primary magnets was gone. It was not easy to carry around so many multi-element magnets. He circled around the cave and suddenly came before the largest earth fiend beast statue. He cut open its chest and dug out pieces of black iron ores of high purity from within. After a round of kneading and stretching, they turned into iron bars. He used them to weave a huge iron basket. The work was very meticulous and did not look rough at all. He carried it on his back in satisfaction and picked up the primary magnets and threw them inside. A series of clanking sounds rang out. After collecting all the scattered primary magnets, he worked hard in the cavern to collect as many primary magnets as possible. This was to lay a solid foundation for the development of the Myriad Nature sect. After 2 days, the iron basket was filled to the brim. Only then did he carry the basket and walk with heavy steps. With the joy of a great harvest, he walked out of the mountain. "Big brother, this is really a great harvest." The fair-faced young master smiled and threw a piece of primary magnet into the basket beside him. However, it was caught by a hand in midair and thrown into another basket. The black-faced fiend said indifferently, "It's my turn this time." "Oh, I remembered wrongly." "Ah, I'm sorry. Between us brothers, there's no need to fuss over these small details." Although they hadn't dug out a single piece of primary magnet with their own hands, the 2 baskets were almost full. The black-faced fiend furrowed his brows. Up until now, none of the 3 nascent souls have shown up. This is the only way to get out of the mountain. The 3-day deadline is almost here. They will show up eventually. I'm worried that they're causing trouble inside. Some of them don't seem to want to pay the toll. With this Earth Fiend magnetic origin array here, no matter how many tricks they have, they're not a match for us. But if they knew what was good for them, there's no need for us to become enemies with them. Just let them go. They were as relaxed as if they were on a date. But they didn't know that there was a pair of eyes watching them through the stone wall. It was the female nascent soul cultivator. She had tied up her long hair and was wearing leather clothes and pants, looking very capable. Especially her eyes, which were extraordinarily bright. It was unknown what method she used. She could actually ignore the influence of the Earth Fiend magnetic origin array and make her eyes penetrate the rock. Of course, with this trick, she dug out a large number of primary magnets, which filled most of the baskets. Zhu Yingkai asked nervously, "Senior Su Tong, how is it? Are they still there?" Su Tong withdrew her gaze. "Yes." There was a sigh in the cave, and there was also a scolding. "These 2 bastards are really greedy. They've already robbed so many primary magnets, and they still won't give up." There were 100 or 200 people gathered here, and all kinds of voices gathered together. It was as noisy as a vegetable market. Someone warned, "Be quiet, be careful of attracting the Earth Fiend beasts." Immediately, someone said disdainfully, "Coward, there's no Earth Fiend beast. It's all bluffing." Su Tong blinked her eyes, thinking of the song she heard when she ventured deep into the Yuan Ci mountain the day before yesterday. The song came from the belly of the mountain under her feet. She was shocked at that time. She didn't expect that someone would dare to go so deep into the Yuan Ci mountain and sing loudly. It was simply crazy. However, the song didn't stop for a long time. Instead, it became louder and louder. She guessed that it must be a nascent soul cultivator. The 2 robber brothers must have come here early to prepare. Also, the voice of an old Taoist couldn't be so young, so it could only be him. A handsome and gentle face appeared in her mind, making people involuntarily have a good impression of him. "I hope he hasn't been killed by the Earth Fiend beast. I'm afraid it's because of him that almost no one has encountered the Earth Fiend beast this time." As a result, the test became abnormally simple. Even the competition between people was reduced by a lot. Without the threat of the Earth Emanations beasts, They could go deeper into the mountains to dig out more origin magnets. There was no need to kill each other. Li Qingshan almost single-handedly carried all the difficulty of this assessment. If it weren't for the two brothers blocking the way, many people would have passed. Zhu Yingkai sat on the ground and lamented, "What should we do? We can't get out. If only nascent soul cultivators were as good as Senior Su Tong." All the cultivators begged, "Senior Su Tong, you must help us." Su Tong was disdainful. "A bunch of fools. Why should I help you? The two robber brothers' trick is too cruel. Even I am no match for them. How can I help you? If it weren't for the influence in the Wanxiang sect, I would have cheated you out of all your primary magnets and found another way out. Alas, I'm a female cultivator. If I enter the Wanxiang sect, I will definitely be on senior sister Chao Tianjiao's side. Female cultivators on senior sister's side have always paid attention to unity and friendship. If I leave a bad impression on them that I'm scheming, it won't be worth it. It's better to be a male cultivator. It's not a big deal to fight and do bad things. Maybe they will appreciate me more. Alas, being a woman is so troublesome. While she was struggling, heavy footsteps came from the depths of the cave. Bang, bang, bang. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. All the cultivators immediately fell silent. Such footsteps could only be made by the earth fiend beast. There was no way to escape here. If he went forward, he would only run into the two brothers' trap. This time, there were wolves in front of him and tigers behind him. He was in a dilemma. Zhu Yingkai sat up and asked anxiously, Senior, what should we do?" Su Tong's eyes were shining. She suddenly opened her eyes wide as if she had seen something incredible. How is this possible? Chapter 1379. Li Qingshan lowered his head and bent his waist deeply. His well-defined muscles flowed like water, and the iron basket on his back was many times larger than the basket issued by the nature sect, making him look like a big snail crawling slowly. However, this was just an illusion. Every step he took was more than 3 meters, and his bare feet deeply stepped into the ground before quickly pulling up, leaving a series of deep footprints. The brilliance of the prime magnet shone through the gaps of the iron basket, as eye-catching as fireflies in the dark. How could he collect so many prime magnets of such high quality? Su Tong felt that she had cheated in this assessment, and she could not be compared to the two shameless brothers. She really could not imagine how he did it. Suddenly, she thought of the song and the roar coming from the belly of the mountain, and a thought came to her mind, no way. Did he collect so many prime magnets by killing earth beasts? With a smile on her face, she walked forward and bowed. Fellow Taoist, please wait. Under the awe of the crowd, Li Qingshan slowed down but did not stop. What can I do for you, Taoist? Su Tong said solemnly, Taoist, please be careful. There are evil people blocking the way. Do you remember the two nascent soul cultivators? One was a pretty boy, and the other was a short black man. They were brothers, and they set up the Earth Fiend magnetic formation to rob cultivators who passed by. Many people have been killed. Li Qingshan was surprised. Earth Fiend magnetic formation. There is such a formation? Alas, the effect of this formation is the same as the Earth Fiend magnetic formation, and it can greatly weaken the enemies who enter the formation. The two brothers are really ingenious, using this formation to resist the influence of the Earth Fiend magnetic formation. As long as you are within the range of the formation, you can almost completely recover your strength. I'm afraid no one in this mountain is a match for them. Su Tong looked worried. She wanted to persuade Li Qingshan to ally with her, if her guess was right. If her guess was right, then his strength was extremely powerful, and a powerful ally was much more useful than a group of useless people. Zhu Yingcai's mood was somewhat complicated, but he still stepped forward to complain. These two fellows are really too despicable. They stole the source magnet that everyone worked so hard to dig up. They're exactly the same as those mountain bandits. You must help us. Li Qingshan glanced at him indifferently. Since the rules allow it, then I'll do it. There was nothing wrong with that. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. He quickened his pace and moved forward, deciding to follow the Qilin's way and not meddle in other people's business. "Hey, fellow cultivator, fellow cultivator." Su Tong stomped her foot. He hurried to catch up. Outside the Yuan-Ci mountain, Yuan Yaozhu frowned slightly. This was different from how Li Qingshan behaved in Whitestag. Was the human heart really that complicated? The nine-colored deer was even more anxious. "Bastard Li Qingshan, where is your sense of justice when you invited those beggars to eat? Where's your courage to not fear the myriad appearance sect?" Lu Tian smiled and said, "What do you think, junior sister Yuan? He's not as kind as you think, right? The human heart is unpredictable. The outcome of this gamble of good and evil is hard to predict. If he doesn't do evil or good, then it'll be a draw." "I trust him," Yuan Yaozhu said. Lu Tian licked his thin lips and said, "I really can't wait to see the final outcome." Ren Aoyao and Pai Yangqiu clenched their fists. "I'm begging you, leave one for me and let me pass." The middle-aged man cried. He knelt on the ground and begged the two brothers. He came here from another cave and ran into the trap. All the source magnets on him were swept away. The pale-faced man smiled and said, "Brother, what do you think? Why don't we give him a piece? I feel bad seeing him cry." The dark-faced man said fiercely, "Brother, since when did your heart become so soft?" "Sigh, I'm a compassionate person." "That's strange." They were like cats that had caught a mouse, playing around with a relaxed expression on their faces. It was just to relieve their boredom. When the heavy footsteps rang out, they all widened their eyes, gazing at Li Qingshan in disbelief as he walked over from afar. The pale-faced man murmured, "It's a lie." The dark-faced man immediately became vigilant and a dangerous cold light flashed in his eyes. Li Qingshan didn't even look at them. He didn't even change the frequency of his footsteps. He walked over step by step and stepped into the Earth Fiend Source Magnet Array, continuing to move forward. He lowered his head as if he didn't see anything, but he thought, if they take the initiative to find trouble with me, of course I have to protect myself. That doesn't violate the Qilin Dao. The two brothers quickly exchanged glances. They had no intention of becoming enemies with any nascent soul cultivators, but the number of primordial magnets in the iron basket had already firmly secured the first place. Even if they gathered all the primordial magnets they had plundered, they still wouldn't be able to compare to it. Their plan was completely ruined. However, they didn't dare to act rashly. How could a person who could get so many source magnets be easy to deal with? Just by carrying such heavy source magnets and having a strong body that could still move forward steadily, he was not easy to deal with. Most importantly, this man seemed to have an invisible momentum that made them not dare to be enemies with him easily. Should they act or not? In an instant, Li Qingshan had already arrived in front of them, and a fierce battle was about to break out. The middle-aged man forgot to continue begging for a moment and looked up at Li Qingshan blankly. The cultivators behind him, led by Su Tong, were also extremely nervous. Even the few true disciples were staring at the heavenly vision, earthly hearing painting. In an instant, all eyes were focused on Li Qingshan. The result of the assessment and the winner of the bet would be revealed at this moment. However, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Li Qingshan passed by the two brothers and continued to move forward, gradually getting farther and farther away. Su Tong curled her lips, and there was a sigh behind her. All the cultivators who wanted to take advantage of the chaos to sneak past were disappointed. The true disciples also had different expressions on their faces. Lu Tian showed a proud smile. He had at least won one of the two bets, and it was still a big profit for him. Yuan Yaozhu sighed in her heart, but it had nothing to do with the outcome of the bet. Alas, this is the wisest choice. Forget it, how can I ask others to do the same as me? As long as they don't use violence indiscriminately, it is already commendable. But it was difficult to hide the disappointment in her beautiful eyes. Ren Aoyao and Pai Yangqiu couldn't help but shout at the heaven-seeing and earth-hearing painting, "You two useless things, attack me!" The expressions of the two brothers were constantly changing. They seemed to be communicating with their divine thoughts, but they were caught in an argument and let the footsteps gradually fade away. Li Qingshan looked up and saw a flash of light in front of him. The exit was already in sight. He was definitely the champion of this assessment, but he was a little annoyed, as if there was a thorn in his back and a fishbone stuck in his throat. The middle-aged man's pleading voice rang out again. He suddenly stopped, and the iron basket behind him fell to the ground with a loud bang, stirring up a cloud of dust. Against the light, he straightened his body, turned around, and pointed at the two brothers. "Hey, you, give him back the yuan magnet." Chapter 1380. The two brothers looked at each other, then turned around and looked at Li Qingshan with unkind expressions. "Big brother, did I hear wrong? Brother, did I hear it wrong? Did I hear wrong? Is there something wrong with his head?" "Yes." There's a path to heaven, but he chose to barge into hell." "That's right." For a moment, killing intent filled the air. Outside the yuan-fused mountain, Ruan Yaozhu's eyes lit up again. Her heart was filled with relief, and she smiled at Letian as if to say, "See, I didn't choose the wrong person." Renaoyo smiled. "Junior brother Le, you've already lost one of these two bets." At this point, good and evil had already been separated. Unless one was distorting the truth and twisting words to force logic, no one could say that such an action was not a good deed. The people present were all people of status, so they naturally wouldn't do such a thing for a bet. Pai Yangqiu smiled. "And he's about to lose the second round. Two nascent soul cultivators aren't that easy to deal with." Lutian scratched his head. "That doesn't make sense. What's wrong with this kid? This is acting bravely, how is this crazy?" Ruan Yaozhu was a little worried about Li Qingshan. "Senior brother Lu, let's go to the other side of the mountain. Don't worry, he won't die anytime soon. Even if he dies, he deserves it. There's a price to pay for being a good person." Letian's words made Ruan Yaozhu feel dissatisfied. She sighed again. "Yes, there's a price to pay for being a good person. I hope you'll be safe." Although Li Qingshan referred to himself as the Hero King, he really was not standing up for a just cause this time. Instead, he was truly going crazy, as he was in a very bad mood. The Qilin transformation was just far too difficult to please. That wouldn't work either. It was even harder to deal with than the Phoenix transformation. Otherwise, he couldn't be bothered to meddle in other people's business. Cultivators weren't little beggars who were prepared to be killed when they came out, let alone being robbed. That cowardly appearance wasn't worth his help. This was all because he was holding back his resentment. The two brothers became ready-made punching bags, and they walked up without saying a word. "Kill him." The black-faced fiend pulled out a black dragon-headed walking stick from behind his back. It suddenly lit up with a dazzling red light, turning the dark cave crimson. With a deep dragon roar, raging flames gushed out and burned towards Li Qingshan. The pale-faced man waved his sleeves and a folding fan fell from his sleeves. With a swoosh, he unfurled his fan, and the profound runes drawn on it lit up one after another as he fanned with all his might. The gale arrived first even though it was released later. The wind increased the intensity of the fire, sweeping up the raging flames and turning them into a fire tornado. It filled up the entire cave and whistled over. The two of them didn't make a move, but once they did, they joined forces and attacked with all their strength. Li Qingshan was unable to dodge and was instantly engulfed by the fire tornado. The two brothers smiled coldly. He really didn't know what was good for him. He didn't even have the most basic protective chi in the origin magnetic mountain. He was instantly roasted into a pig, and even his nascent soul couldn't escape. Su Tong wanted to take advantage of the chaos to sneak out, but she was forced to retreat by the heat wave. The cultivators behind her were even worse. They were almost rolling and crawling, and their eyebrows and hair were burnt. The rocks in the cave were burned red and melted into magma. Impossible. Even without the influence of the origin magnetic mountain, the cultivators who set up the formation still had the advantage of the terrain. Coupled with the advantage in numbers, it was impossible for Li Qingshan to win. "I'm afraid he's already dead." The fire illuminated the heavenly vision and earthly hearing painting red. The scene in the mountain couldn't be seen clearly. Ruan Yaozhu's heart skipped a beat. Is it true that good people don't get what they deserve? Ren Aoyao and Pai Yangqiu were relieved. Once Li Qingshan was dead, Letian would definitely lose. There was a trace of regret and doubt in their hearts. How could such a man die in such a place? However, they saw Letian standing on the side with a smile. "Hey, Letian, your dark horse is going to be eliminated." Letian said, "You don't have to look like that. I bet that he won't die here." Yuan Yaozhu was surprised. "But because some people can win every bet, such as me. Do you think it's all luck?" "It's about time, brother." The fair-faced man fanned the fan with all his might. "Burn again." The black-faced man used all his strength to drive the dragon-head crutch. For some reason, he felt uneasy. "I'm afraid he's already been burnt to ashes." The fair-faced man had just revealed a smile when he suddenly turned pale with fright. With a roar, Li Qingshan jumped out of the flames. His whole body was roasted red, but he was not injured at all. His strong and beautiful body looked like it was made of red copper, or like a blazing red tiger. He pounced on the fair-faced man and knocked him to the ground. "Whirlwind protection." The fair-faced man had just shouted these 4 words when he was punched in the face. If it wasn't for the whirlwind, his brain would have burst. Even so, he was already scared out of his wits. Li Qingshan was about to give a second punch when a whistling sound came from the back of his head. Without looking back, he grabbed the dragon head crutch and pulled it hard. "Come here." The black-faced man could not help but stagger forward. His throat was tightly clutched and his dark face was full of horror. The fair-faced man hurriedly urged his magic power, but before he could cast a spell, he was kicked in the stomach. His stomach turned upside down, and his internal organs felt like they were being torn apart. He almost vomited bile. The black-faced man wanted to use the dragon head crutch to fight back, but he was hit on the head by the crutch. He felt dizzy and saw stars. Li Qingshan punched and kicked left and right, as if he was hitting a sandbag. Whoever dared to resist, he would beat them up. Of all things to learn, you have to learn how to rob. Who's crazy? Who broke into hell without the door? The 2 brothers screamed again and again, as if they were mortals without any power to resist. "Fellow cultivator, please spare me. Fellow cultivator, please spare me." The fair-faced man screamed. Of course, at this time, his face was already swollen, and there was a big footprint on it. Li Qingshan was also ruthless, specifically hitting the fair-faced man's face. The black-faced man was a little tougher, and asked in surprise, Why are you fine? You still dare to ask?" Li Qingshan hit the crutch again. They were almost out of the mountain, and the influence of the earth fiend magnetism field on the small world inside his body was not that strong. An ordinary nascent soul cultivator would die without a doubt if they were hit like that in this kind of environment. However, he had the bloodline of gods and devils. The tiger demon was in charge of wind, and the phoenix was in charge of fire, so his resistance was extremely strong. Once he got close, these 2 brothers were not even as good as this earth fiend beast. At least the earth fiend beast did not know pain, and it had no vital points, so it would not be scared out of its wits. It was not that they were timid, but if their physical bodies were destroyed in this essence-fused mountain, and even their nascent souls could not escape, it would be a dead end. Therefore, in the end, Li Qingshan no longer needed to specially suppress them. After they realized that Li Qingshan had no killing intent, they simply lay on the ground and took the beating, afraid that if they put up any more resistance, it would instead arouse the killing intent in Li Qingshan's heart. Although Li Qingshan did not want to kill, he was a vengeful person. How could he let them off so easily? He grabbed one with his left hand and the other with his right, like a naughty child throwing his temper and grabbing 2 ragdolls, throwing and beating them randomly. As he beat them, he asked, "I'm using virtue to win people over. Let me ask you, are you convinced? I beg you, stop beating us. We're convinced. We're convinced, all right?" The onlookers were all dumbfounded. The 2 arrogant brothers were being beaten up in the earth fiend magnetism field formation that they had set up themselves. Other than screaming, they were begging for mercy. If it were not for the roasted red rocks still showing the power of the fire tornado just now, they would have suspected that the 2 brothers were pretending to be nascent soul cultivators. Su Tong blinked her eyes. In that case, he really went deep into the mountain and killed the earth fiend beasts to get the multi-element magnetism field. They were both at the third level of the heavenly tribulation, so how could there be such a big difference between them? Lution clapped his hands and said, "What did I say? What did I say?" Pai Yangqiu said, "Where the hell did this kid come from? Even the eldest senior brother couldn't have come out unscathed with that kind of cultivation and under that kind of circumstances." Ren Qiaoyu frowned and suddenly shook his head with a smile. "I lost this round, but at least I helped junior sister Ruan win this round." Ruan Yaozhu said, "No, I didn't." Ren Qiaoyu waved his hand. "No need to say more. I said you won, so you won." Pai Yangqiu said with a smile, "Junior sister Ruan, just admit it. It's better for you to win than for Lution to win. Let's see how he can boast in the future. When it comes to understanding people's minds, you're still better." Chapter 1381. The one you chose? Lution laughed. "That old Taoist wants to win against my super dark horse?" Ren Aoyou and Pai Yangqiu also laughed disapprovingly. For the past 3 days, they had been paying attention to the old Taoist. He was just an honest miner and was even worse than the female cultivator named Su Tong. They could not see any possibility of him winning the championship. They just thought that Leng Yuan was blinded and stopped paying attention to him. Leng Yuan said, "You wouldn't say that if you knew what technique he was practicing." Li Qingshan exhaled viciously and tossed aside his 2 brothers who had been beaten half to death. He snatched their arcane treasures rudely and picked up the 2 baskets of origin magnets they had stolen. He was just about to make his way out of the cave. "Fellow cultivator, please wait." Li Qingshan turned around and saw an old Taoist with white hair and a youthful complexion walking out from the other side of the cave. He frowned. "What is it?" The old Taoist said politely, "Can you please put down these primary magnets?" Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows and raised the 2 baskets of primary magnets in his hands. "Are you talking about these?" No, there's also that one over there." The old Taoist pointed at the iron basket in the distance. Li Qingshan shook his head and sighed, difficult. "Fellow cultivator, you mentioned 3 difficulties in a row. Are you unable to give up these 3 baskets of primary magnets? How about this? I'm not an unreasonable person. I'll exchange my basket with you." The old Taoist put down the basket on his back. It was only half filled with primary magnets of average quality. "It's just some broken stones. It's not that difficult to give them up. What's the purpose of that? The world is full of bastards like you. It's too damn difficult for me to be a good person." Li Qingshan's roar shook the cave. It was filled with accusations against the cruel world and a trace of uncontrollable killing intent. The old Taoist's expression changed slightly. He laughed. "If you don't want to live in this world, I can help you." A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his tall and thin body suddenly swelled up. His bulging muscles stretched his loose Taoist robe to the point that it was about to split open. In an instant, he became a muscular man, and even his expression became ferocious. He casually punched the rock wall beside him. The rock wall suddenly caved in, forming a huge pit. The entire cave trembled with the loud noise. "The technique that I'm cultivating is called the essence snatching, qi concealing, fetus concealing technique. It can restrain all the blood and qi in one's body and nurture one's nascent soul like a placenta. However, when it's needed, it can also transform all the mana in one's nascent soul into blood and qi, making one's body indestructible and powerful. Have you ever heard of it?" "So it's this technique. Isn't this a demonic technique?" Ruan Yaozhu frowned. This essence-stealing qi-concealing embryo technique was not as simple as just restraining one's own blood and qi. It also seized the blood essence of others and turned it into a placenta to nourish the golden core and nascent soul. It was even said that there were some people who specially trained on infants who were not yet 1 year old. Not only were they easy to refine, but they could also obtain innate spiritual qi. It was extremely cruel and vicious. Lution praised, "Senior martial brother Leng really has good eyesight. This technique is all about concealing one's essence qi. It can't even fool us." Junior Marshall Sister 1. These loose cultivators from small sects don't have the 10,000 heavenly book to choose from like us in the myriad sect. We really can't be too particular about techniques. Ruan Yaozhu remained silent. This old Taoist only cultivated demonic techniques, but even his temperament was problematic. He was even more righteous than the two brothers when it came to robbing others. However, the myriad sect was all-inclusive and had never been strict when it came to accepting disciples. This was not something that she could change. But strangely, she was no longer worried about Li Qingshan. However, he no longer worried about Li Qingshan. Instead, he felt a strange sense of confidence. He believed that Li Qingshan would definitely teach him a vicious lesson. After being provoked again and again, Li Qingshan's killing intent was boiling. He silently circulated the Qilin strategy of longevity. He licked his slightly dry lips and asked the two brothers who were pretending to be dead, "Do you want your weapons back?" The two brothers opened their eyes and nodded. Losing the prime magnet was already a huge loss. If they lost their magic treasures as well, then they would really suffer a huge loss. "Kill this muscular old Taoist for me." Li Qingshan threw the fan and walking stick back into their hands. These two broken magic treasures were nothing in his eyes. He was afraid that if he continued to fight, he wouldn't be able to hold back the killing intent in his heart. That would really damage the Qilin Sui. He sat on a rock at the side and said, "Hurry up." The two brothers took the magic treasures and jumped up. Although they were beaten very badly, Li Qingshan showed mercy and didn't harm their lives. 4 nascent soul cultivators, as long as their nascent souls weren't damaged, physical injuries weren't a big deal. The fair-faced young master's face was swollen. He rubbed his hands together with a fawning expression and said, "Fellow Taoist, no, senior. Can you be magnanimous and let us brothers go? Return the prime magnet to us as well? We brothers are willing to follow you." Li Qingshan simply closed his eyes and said, "I'll count to 3. The two brothers felt a chill in their hearts. "Old Taoist, hurry up and accept your death." The muscular old Taoist took a step back. He didn't expect Li Qingshan to have this move. He was facing 3 nascent soul cultivators at once. Moreover, the Earth Fiend magnetic array was still there. He instantly felt that the situation was not good. Then I can only deal with the 2 of you first." The muscular old Taoist recalled the tragic state of the 2 brothers when they were beaten up by Li Qingshan and became even more confident. He crushed the rocks and took big strides, charging forward. The 2 brothers waved the walking stick and the fan. Strong smoke billowed and strong winds blew. The wind fueled the fire, and the fire fueled the wind. They repeated the same trick and another fire dragon rushed toward the muscular old Taoist. The muscular old Taoist was in a wide cave. Unlike Li Qingshan, who was blocked in a narrow passage, he had more space to dodge. There were also many rock pillars that could be used as rocks. However, he recalled what he saw just now. Li Qingshan rushed out of the sea of fire unscathed. He was sure that the power of magic would be greatly weakened in the prime magnet mountain. His current physique was definitely not weaker than Li Qingshan's. There was no reason that he couldn't do what he could. As long as he got close, the 2 brothers would be at his mercy. Therefore, he held his breath and rushed into the sea of fire without hesitation. The 2 brothers were shocked. They also recalled the same scene and felt a little nervous. They were afraid that someone would rush over to hold them down and beat them up again. Just as they were worrying, they suddenly heard the muscular old Taoist scream. The muscular old Taoist was rolling on the ground from the fire. His tight Taoist robe and his hair were all burned. All of them were burned to a crisp. The strong winds were like countless sharp blades cutting down, like a death sentence. No, it was worse than death by 1,000 cuts. Although his physique was strong, it was obvious that he did not have the bloodline of the Phoenix Demon or the Tiger Demon. He did not have the willpower to endure the torture and rush through the sea of fire. Li Qingshan opened his eyes and took a look. "You even have muscles in your head? Even if I can't do it, you can do it." The 2 brothers were instantly relieved. They used even more effort to activate the wind and fire. It condensed into a fiery snake that danced wildly and tightly wrapped around the muscular Taoist priest, not giving him any chance to escape. Listening to his blood-curdling screams, the Taoist priest's face was filled with cruel pleasure. It was obvious that he was venting his anger. Even the true disciples did not expect that what they thought was a life-and-death battle would end in such a ridiculous way. Seeing that victory was certain, Lu Tian laughed. "Junior brother Lung, I have to admire your sharp eyes. This old Taoist is also a vicious person. Unfortunately, his brain is not very good. In the end, my dark horse is still smarter." Leng Yuan's face seemed to turn colder. Originally, with the old Taoist's essence stealing qi concealing embryo technique, he could have easily defeated the two brothers even if he threw a stone from afar. He might even have been a match for Li Qingshan. Unexpectedly, he was stupid enough to use a body of flesh and blood without the protection of vital energy. It was extremely stupid to resist the spell cast by two nascent soul cultivators. Pai Yangqiu said, "Senior brother Lu, congratulations, you finally won a round." Lu Tian's smile faded a little. "Anyway, I did not lose. I did not expect junior sister Ruan to be the biggest winner this time. As expected, newbies are more lucky." Ruan Yaozhu said seriously, "Senior brother Lu, I did not want to win. I just wanted to tell you that the human heart is not as bad as you think." Lu Tian raised his hands in surrender. Fine. The winner takes all. Whatever the winner says is right." The two brothers burned the muscular old Taoist until his entire body was charred black and he was half dead. His muscles withered again and the cave was filled with the smell of roasted meat. Li Qingshan said, "All right, spare his life. The magnets on him are yours." The two brothers' eyes lit up and they thanked him profusely. The pale-faced man said tentatively, "Fellow Taoist, this earth fiend magnetic formation is not easy to obtain. Why don't we guard it for a while longer? We are willing to give you half of the harvest." Li Qingshan glanced at him indifferently. "Then why should I give you half?" The pale-faced man said embarrassedly, "You are right, you are right." At this moment, Su Tong came forward and praised, "Fellow Taoist, you are brave and resourceful. No wonder you are not afraid of danger. I admire you." Li Qingshan said, "It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning." It may be a small matter for fellow Taoist, but for them, it's a matter of life and death. Su Tong waved her hand behind her. Most of the cultivators were still immersed in the tragic scene of burning a living person. When they came back to their senses, they thanked Li Qingshan one after another and carefully bypassed the charred figure. Zhu Yingkai hid in the crowd with a very complicated mood. Li Qingshan did not notice his existence at all. Li Qingshan picked up the metal basket on his back again and carried a basket of origin magnets in each hand, striding out of the mountain. A beautiful female cultivator accompanied him as over 100 cultivators followed behind him in a dense mass. It was rather like a leader inspecting them. The two brothers were left behind to guard half a basket of magnets. They looked at each other in dismay and became vigilant. Now Li Qingshan was naturally the first champion of this assessment, and Su Tong was the second, so there was only the third. "Brother, we are just servants. With our cultivation, it's not difficult to be promoted from servants to servants. So let's not hurt our friendship. Brother, what you said is reasonable. Then let me do it this time." The black-faced man grabbed the basket on his back fiercely. The pale-faced man held the other side tightly, and the basket was suspended in the air. "Brother, you are wrong. It has always been the elder brother who gives way to the younger brother. There is no reason for the younger brother to give way to the elder brother. The order of seniority." Afich. Just as the two brothers were arguing, Li Qingshan was about to walk out of the cave. The white light in front of him was getting brighter and brighter, and the moist sea breeze poured into the cave with a slightly salty smell. Chapter 1382. The huge three-legged golden toad was lying on the beach, glowing with a golden light under the sun, which suddenly attracted everyone's attention. Li Qingshan opened his eyes wide and saw a familiar figure. It was the great princess, who was sitting on the 9-colored deer. She looked back and nodded with a smile. She seemed to be in a good mood. Could it be that she came specifically for me? My charm is really hard to resist. Li Qingshan thought in a very narcissistic manner. He recalled the feeling of being watched and thought back to everything he had done in the Origin Magnetic Mountain in a hurry. He discovered he had not done anything outrageous, so he could not help but let out a sigh of relief. After all, he had received a good person card from others. Even he didn't want to disappoint those who had good intentions for him. In addition to her and Lution, there were 3 strange men. Judging from their demeanor, they must be direct disciples with the cultivation of human sovereign realm. He didn't understand why a small entrance examination could attract so many big shots. Moreover, several people's eyes were almost all focused on him. This was not his illusion. Su Tong looked at him in amazement and thought, are these true disciples all here for him? She involuntarily kept a distance from him and fell behind. This was a big misunderstanding. Li Qingshan was the focus of 2 bets at the same time. With his extraordinary performance, he won the appreciation of several direct disciples. Naturally, the gambler's eyes were full of meaning. With Li Qingshan in the lead, a group of people meandered to the beach and stood in front of the 3-legged golden toad. Congratulations to everyone for passing the entrance examination and becoming a member of the Wanxiang sect. Lution stood high on the back of the 3-legged golden toad and opened his arms with a smile. Now, please put the Yuan magnetic iron into the mouth of the 3-legged golden toad. The toad opened its mouth with a thunderous sound. Li Qingshan was the first to step forward and put 3 baskets of Yuan magnetic iron into the mouth of the 3-legged golden toad. Su Tong followed him closely. She saw Li Qingshan put down the basket, walked to the true disciples, and asked, why are you here? Su Tong was more convinced of her guess. If it were not for the fact that there were people in the Wanxiang sect, how could they have such an attitude? Those people were all human emperors who had gone through 5 heavenly tribulations. Little did he know that this was Li Qingshan's personality, even when facing demon god Qiongqi. He was not willing to be subservient. The successor disciples were not surprised. Regardless of whether this lad was good or evil, he was by no means a coward. In particular, Ren Chuyo's eyes were filled with admiration. I'm a little worried. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. Her attitude was natural and peaceful. She seemed to be a little shy. She did not expect him to come over and talk to her like this. Li Qingshan was moved. Even if the world was difficult and evil people were everywhere, there would always be such a heart of gold. He sincerely said, thank you. Ruan Yaozhu shook her head gently, I'm just here to take a look. No one could tell that this was a conversation between 2 cultivators who were 2 realms apart. It was this feeling of equality that moved Li Qingshan. He thought, maybe the Kailan strategy of longevity should be practiced by people like her. I'll return it to you when I get the bookmark. The 9-colored deer was so proud that she could not hold back anymore. She generously said, no, lad. We'll give you the sapphire bookmark. She now found Li Qingshan very pleasing to the eye. They had made a lot of money in this bet. As for the sapphire bookmark, it was just a small amount of money and was not worth her attention. Ruan Yaozhu gently patted the 9-colored deer and said coquettishly, Jiu. No, you must return it. Li Qingshan looked at Lution. Senior brother Lution, when can I get my bookmark? Since it's junior sister Ruan's debt, I'll pay you now. Lution counted with his fingers and took out 3 sapphire bookmarks and 7 silver bookmarks. There was also a brass bookmark and a mystic wood bookmark. Only 3 bookmarks? Li Qingshan was surprised. He had risked his life in the Yuan-fused mountain and earned a lot of Yuan-fused magnets, but he only got 2 sapphire bookmarks in the end. Isn't this too little? Could it be that Lution is scamming me? Lution smiled and said, what do you think? Ren Chuyu said, lad, the sapphire bookmark is the highest grade bookmark in the nature sect. Do you think it's so easy to get it? Li Qingshan finally understood the preciousness of the sapphire bookmark. He looked at Ruan Yaozhu deeply and thought, damn it. I said to win people over with virtue. But I haven't succeeded even once. In the end, I had to use force. Now, I'm about to be won over by virtue. Ruan Yaozhu looked down to avoid his burning gaze. She stretched out her hand and said, "All right, give it back." Li Qingshan put the sapphire bookmark in her hand and said solemnly, "You are a good person." "Li Qingshan, where are you from?" Leng Yuan suddenly asked with a solemn and scrutinizing expression. Li Qingshan's heart tightened. This was the question he didn't want to answer the most. He smiled and said, "From a very, very far away place." "May I know your name, fellow Taoist?" "Leng Yuan. I'm in charge of the security of the nature sect. Please answer my question truthfully." "You don't dare to answer. Do you have a guilty conscience?" Leng Yuan's eyes became even colder. Li Qingshan also said seriously, "I'm sorry. This is my privacy. After I understand the rules of the nature sect, I will cooperate with Senior Marshal Brother within the scope of the sect's rules." The 9 provinces all had treasures like the Xieji's horn that could distinguish between truth and lies. The human world probably didn't lack such methods. Moreover, a lie must have a loophole. In the end, he had to use more lies to make up for it. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he would never lie. Leng Yuan was startled. He didn't expect to be rebuffed. Ruan Yaozhu and Pai Yangqiu both smiled. Ren Aoyou even laughed. "Leng Yuan, you've met your match. Boy, I admire you more and more." Leng Yuan said, "I will keep an eye on you." Li Qingshan nodded and smiled. He didn't talk to Ruan Yaozhu anymore. He turned around and walked back to the crowd. Su Tong and the other cultivators looked at him with admiration. A true disciple was a high and mighty figure. At this time, the 2 brothers also walked out of the mountain. Seeing this scene, they immediately gave up the idea of revenge. Instead, they were a little worried that Li Qingshan would hold a grudge. Soon, everyone's magnets fell into the 3-legged golden toad's mouth. Lu Tian announced the ranking of this assessment. First place, Li Qingshan. Second place, Su Tong. Third place, Nie Xiuwen. Nie Xiuwu was the fair-faced gentleman of the 2 brothers. Originally, he had exchanged the same amount of magnets as the dark-faced fiend, but in the end, he took out a grape-sized piece of magnets from his sleeve and beat his elder brother, Nie Xiuwen. At that time, his expression darkened even more. If it weren't for the true disciples holding the line, they would have started fighting on the spot. Pai Yangqiu said to Ren Aoyou, "What did I say?" Ren Aoyou snorted. "Did you win?" Pai Yangqiu smiled. "You can say I won. For a gambler, besides the result, winning or losing is also very important." Everyone boarded the big ship. However, Li Tian stopped Li Qingshan. "Congratulations, junior brother Li. You became a true disciple as soon as you entered the sect." He smiled like an old fox staring at a big rooster. Li Qingshan clearly felt a sense of malice. He said bluntly, "What do you want, senior brother?" Lu Tian said, "Junior brother, you're indeed a straightforward person. I don't have any other hobbies, but I like gambling. I'm especially optimistic about junior brother's gambling nature, so I'd like to make a bet with you." Ren Aoyou and the other 2 seemed to have already expected it. They all showed a look of interest. Ruan Yaozhu frowned. "Senior brother Lu." Lu Tian said, "Junior sister, you can't blame me for making a bet during the entrance examination. However, this is a private bet between me and junior brother Li. It has nothing to do with you." Ruan Yaozhu could only look at Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan really didn't want to disappoint her, but he was really curious about the contents of the bet. "Sigh, I've never liked gambling. But since senior brother Lu has spoken, I can't just ignore it. May I ask, what do you want to bet?" Lu Tian's smile became even wider. "You're not far from becoming a chamber disciple. One more step and you'll become a true disciple. Why don't we bet on when you can become a true disciple?" "Oh, how long do you think it will take for me to become a true disciple?" Chapter 1383. Lu Tian's mask-like smile made him look like a well-tempered casino owner. The innocent Li Qingshan, who looked like a teenager, was the standard ignorant teenager in the story who was walking on a path of no return. He even blinked his eyes seriously. "Senior brother Lu, since it's a bet, we should have a target." Yes, 10 years it is. Hearing this, Li Qingshan didn't react, but the other true disciples all had different expressions. Ruan Yaozhu said angrily, "Senior brother Lu, I can't just ignore you bullying people like this." Others might not know, but as a true disciple, she knew very well how difficult it was to become a true disciple of the myriad phenomenon sect. In theory, as long as one had enough merits, even if one's cultivation wasn't high enough, they could still slowly become a true disciple. However, if one wasn't a human sovereign who had undergone 5 heavenly tribulations, it was very difficult to accumulate merits. A human sovereign completing 1 or 2 important tasks might earn more merits than a nascent soul cultivator could accumulate in 10 years. Unless Li Qingshan could quickly undergo 5 heavenly tribulations, but he was only at the 3rd heavenly tribulation. Becoming a human sovereign within 10 years was simply a pipe dream. Ren Aoyou also said with a smile, "Hey, Letian, this bet is a bit too much. It's not your usual style." Letian was known for his love of gambling, and he won more than he lost. The reason why other people were willing to gamble with him was because he was always very fair. He would never resort to trickery. Even if the loser was not convinced, they would still find a way to get back at him instead of never gambling with him again. Taking advantage of Li Qingshan's ignorance of the myriad sect and making a completely unfair bet was definitely not his style of doing things. "It's just a joke." Lu Tian scratched his head. "I don't know why, but even if it's 10 years, I still feel a little uneasy. Senior brother, you think too highly of me. Please forgive me for not accepting such a bet." Li Qingshan said seriously. He seemed a little dissatisfied, but he was inwardly rejoicing. He was already considering whether or not to bet with Letian. Although he didn't know much about the myriad phenomenon sect, he knew that the so-called true disciples were those who had gone through 5 heavenly tribulations. It wasn't that he didn't have any confidence that he could survive 5 heavenly tribulations in 10 years. Right now, he was only half a step away from the 4th heavenly tribulation. If he cultivated the ape demon transformation to the 5th layer, he would be able to immediately restore the ox, tiger, turtle, and phoenix transformations to the 5th layer. He reckoned that he would not be far from the 5th heavenly tribulation. Okay, I was just joking." Lutian hurriedly said, "Then 50 years it is. With your talent, you should have a high chance of success in 50 years. However, most nascent soul cultivators couldn't overcome the 5th or even the 4th heavenly tribulation in 500 years. They were forever stuck at the bottleneck until they died. Otherwise, they would have been turned into ashes by the tribulation lightning. But based on Li Qingshan's performance in the Origin Magnetic Mountain, this time limit could already be considered fair. Li Qingshan was absolutely willing. Based on the current situation, if he couldn't survive 5 heavenly tribulations in 50 years, he might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. What was the point of ascending to the 9 heavens and fighting Qiongqi? But the expression on his face was very hesitant, as if he had considered it carefully. He bowed and said, "I'm sorry, Senior Brother Lu. I still don't think gambling is very good." After saying that, he walked toward the ship. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. Not all men were like Lutian. Lutian was a little surprised. Based on his understanding of Li Qingshan, with 50 years, Li Qingshan would bet with him no matter what. But he actually refused. He blocked Li Qingshan's path and sized him up. "What do you want? Do you want to extend the time limit? You should know that even for people like us, 50 years is very long. If the progress of the gamble is too slow, it will be very boring. I can increase the odds." Li Qingshan sighed and said, "But I don't have anything to bet." Lutian immediately said, "I can lend it to you." How could a casino owner not lend money? Li Qingshan sighed again. "Sigh, it's so long. I can't stand the interest." "You little brat, so you want me to lend it to you for free? If you die during the tribulation, who will I ask for compensation? It's gambling, so it's inevitable to take some risks." I agree with what Senior Brother Lu said. If the gamble is too long, it will inevitably be boring. I also don't want to increase the odds and take advantage of you. How about this? Li Qingshan smiled and said, 30 years, 1 to 1. He had cut the 50 years limit by nearly half. Such confidence, or rather arrogance, made the few true disciples look at him. In a mere 30 years, a disciple had become a successor disciple. There had never been such an example in the history of the myriad nature sect. In comparison, it was easier to cultivate a nascent soul to a young spirit. But even a peerless genius would need the support of a large amount of resources and hard work to have a chance. During this process, there would be absolutely no time and energy to complete the sect's tasks. Yuan Yaozhu wanted to persuade him, but when she saw Li Qingshan's high-spirited appearance and thought of all the things in the Yuan-fused mountain, she bit her lip and shook her head gently. Ren Aoyou smiled and said, "Kid, I think I'm crazy enough, but I didn't expect you to be even crazier. Do you know how much risk there is in this?" Li Qingshan also smiled and said, "Even if I lose, I won't lose my life. It's not a risk, and getting some resources in advance is always beneficial to my cultivation. Of course, it's better if senior brother Lu is willing to lend it to me." Pai Yangqiu couldn't help clapping his hands and said, "Beautiful." With that, he had turned the tables on Lutian. If Lutian was only willing to lend a very small number of green jade lots, it would be nothing to someone like Li Qingshan in a few decades. If he borrowed a lot, then he could immediately convert it into a large amount of resources and quickly improve his cultivation. Even if he lost in the end, it might not be a loss. In a situation where he had an absolute advantage, if Lutian didn't dare to gamble, then he would lose face. So now he had to lend it to him even if he didn't want to. The smile on Lutian's face became even wider, and his narrowed eyes flashed with sharpness. "How much do you want to bet? This kid is indeed worthy of being the gambler that I like." Unknowingly, the gambling had already begun. If he wanted to regain the upper hand, he had to raise the stakes of this round to a level that would make his opponent fearful. He had to crush his opponent's psychological defenses and make him waver. This was the most common and useful trick in gambling, and as a human sovereign, he had an absolute advantage in this aspect. Li Qingshan said, "How much do you dare to borrow?" At this time, even the calm and stern Lin Yuan was moved. He realized that this joking gambling would probably turn into a shocking gamble. Lutian also didn't expect this. He had originally lost to Li Qingshan and couldn't help but want to get back at him. He didn't expect that he would be forced to do so by Li Qingshan. The handsome man in front of him was no longer a small gambling stake for them to gamble with. Instead, he was the gambler standing on the opposite side of the gambling table, sitting on the same level as him, and even looking at him condescendingly. "If you have the guts to lend me, I will dare to bet with you. Come, let me test your guts." "Interesting, this is really interesting." Lutian laughed heartily, and he even started dancing with joy. He seemed extremely delighted. Li Qingshan stood with his arms crossed, and Lutian's face suddenly approached him. He raised a finger and said, 1,000. Yuan Yaozhu was stunned. She had won against Lutian and the other three almost at the same time, but the green jade lots she had won were still less than 1,000. Even for a true disciple, a green jade lot was very precious, not to mention that Li Qingshan was just a nascent soul cultivator. Li Qingshan stretched out his hand and said, "Give it to me. If you lose, you have to pay 2,000 on the spot. Otherwise," Lutian used his finger to lightly draw a line on his neck. "No one can owe me a gambling debt." Li Qingshan grinned and said, "If I don't pay, I will be at your mercy. Mosquitoes don't bite when there are too many of them." There was no need to worry when one had too many debts. 2,000 green jade lots might be a terrifying number to others, but to Li Qingshan, it was just not enough. It was not that he was really confident that he could become a true disciple of the myriad phenomenon sect in 30 years. Until now, he knew very little about the rules of the myriad phenomenon sect. However, according to Luo Ho Xiaoming's calculations, the 500-year agreement between him and demon god Xiongqi was about the same time limit in the human realm. Either he defeated demon god Xiongqi, then he would not have to worry even if he lost the bet, or he was defeated by demon god Xiongqi. What kind of bullshit is senior brother Lutian? If you have the guts, come to Qingxi Mountain and find me, you bastard. Heh, Even the myriad phenomenon sect master did not have the guts to do that. It could be said that this bet was a great help to him in his bet with demon god Qiongqi. It was not that Lu Tian was stupid, but that Li Qingshan was clever. Who would have thought a measly soul nascent cultivator would actually become involved with a demon god? And he was even saddled with a bet that was basically impossible for him to win. Therefore, people should have great ambitions, even if it would bring them great trouble. However, when you have a big trouble, a small trouble is no trouble. If you can solve a big trouble, a small trouble is nothing. If you can solve a big trouble, a small trouble is also nothing. Lu Tian patted the three-legged golden toad, and it spat out 1,000 green jade lots. He handed them to Li Qingshan personally. Looking at Li Qingshan, who was happily counting the green jade lots, as if he had already won the bet and was counting how much he had won, he suddenly felt a little guilty. As a gambler, he knew how scary this feeling was, but at the same time, he became more and more excited. A gamble that could not make people feel this way was not a gamble at all. It was just a boring game. Li Qingshan counted the green jade lots carefully twice and asked Ruan Yaozhu to help identify if there were any fake notes in them. Only then did he put the green jade lots into his sumaru ring with satisfaction. Lu Wuyo knows his destiny, gambling with life and death. Lu Tian sang loudly and returned to the three-legged golden toad's back. With a croak, the golden toad jumped into the sea. "Ha, kid, I hope you can win." Ren Chuyu laughed 3 times and flew away. "You're on your own," Lin Yuan warned and left as well. Pai Yangqiu went up and patted Li Qingshan's shoulder. "We will meet again." In the blink of an eye, only Li Qingshan, Ruan Yaozhu, and the 9-colored deer were left on the beach. Ruan Yaozhu scolded, "You shouldn't have gambled." Li Qingshan shrugged his shoulders. "I already did." Ruan Yaozhu sighed slightly. "It will take a long time to get to the nature sect by boat. I will give you a ride." Chapter 1384. Li Qingshan couldn't help but look at the only mount here. If he could ride with her, it would be very good. The 9-colored deer was furious. It shook its head as if it wanted to use its horn to attack him. "Don't even think about it." Li Qingshan originally didn't really want to ride her, but after hearing this, he actually wanted to. But of course, it was impossible now. In any case, the other party's realm was much higher than his. If they really fought, he might not be her opponent. Moreover, riding a deer depends on its master. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. "I'll lead the way. I'll fly you there. It's faster than taking a boat." "Thank you very much." Li Qingshan clasped his hands and smiled. "I also had a mount, but I came out in a hurry and didn't bring it." The 9-colored deer raised its head. "What kind of beast is it?" Li Qingshan smiled. "It's not a beast, it's a bird, a phoenix." The 9-colored deer was stunned for a moment, then laughed without caring about her image. If she was in human form, she might be rolling around with laughter. "Phoenix, haha, you brat, you really know how to brag." As the king of birds, the phoenix's bloodline was naturally more sacred and noble than the 9-colored deer's. However, this kind of bird had always been known for its noble temperament. Even immortals might not be able to subdue it as a mount, let alone such a small nascent soul cultivator, and a stinky man at that. Li Qingshan smiled and sighed. "I originally had a cow, but unfortunately, I lost it." Ruan Yaozhu suddenly noticed that when he said this, although there was a smile on his face, his eyes were a bit strange. It was as if he was sighing and full of hope. At this time, the big boat had already set sail. She said, "Let's go too." The 9-colored deer lightly leaped into the air and said sarcastically, "Li Qingshan, I hope I can see your phoenix mount soon. Let me see which phoenix is so blind." Li Qingshan followed closely behind and smiled. "There will be a chance in the future." Achoo! In a corner of the 3,000 worlds, a blind phoenix sneezed again. Flying over the boundless sea, the curtain of night shrouded the land. The stars were bright, the moon was like a hook, and the clouds were pure white and translucent. Li Qingshan wanted to ask Ruan Yaozhu about the situation of the Wanxiang sect, but he found that he couldn't get a word in. Ruan Yaozhu criticized him for gambling with Letian, and split the topic into two clues, Letian and gambling. First, she talked about the various dangers of gambling and gave a series of clear and profound examples. Then, she talked about Letian's reputation in the Wanxiang sect and how good he was at gambling. In the end, he combined the two topics and once again told him that he shouldn't gamble, let alone gamble with Letian. The entire process was well-reasoned and filled with clear examples. She spoke tirelessly and sincerely. Probably even seasoned gamblers would realize their mistakes and turn over a new leaf if they heard this. Only then did Li Qingshan discover that she was actually so talkative despite her quietness and dullness. He studied her face with interest. "Are you listening or not?" Ruan Yaozhu said angrily. Clearly, not only was she not dull, she had a sharp mind. Li Qingshan hurriedly said, "Of course I'm listening. Do you want me to recite it?" "There's no need," Ruan Yaozhu said in a bad mood. "Don't be angry. Gambling has many disadvantages." "Although gambling has many disadvantages, didn't you also win a bet this time? Furthermore, you got something without risking anything." Ruan Yaozhu didn't hide the fact that Letian and the others gambled. She didn't even hide the fact that she won a lot of green jade lots in the end. She wanted to use this to incite Li Qingshan's hatred for gambling. However, Li Qingshan was grateful for her trust and sincerity, so he wasn't angry about being used as a gambling tool. In the end, he helped her win a round. Otherwise, wouldn't that fellow Letian be proud of himself? Ruan Yaozhu said seriously, "The outcome of gambling doesn't lie in the outcome of a single round. Rather, if you win, you will continue to gamble until you lose everything you've won in the past. The path of cultivation lies in accumulation. This kind of thinking of taking shortcuts is already close to the evil path, and it will ultimately affect your entire cultivation." "What you said makes sense." Li Qingshan couldn't help but admire her insight. However, in life, there will always be times when you have no choice but to gamble. If you don't gamble, you won't be able to advance. Not to mention losing everything you've won. Even if you lose your life, you won't hesitate. You were once a noble princess who was doted on by countless people. You also entered a large sect like the Myriad Appearance sect, and you even survived 5 heavenly tribulations in such a short period of time to become a true disciple. Not everyone in this world has your luck and talent. Ruan Yaozhu was silent for a moment, then sighed. "You're right. I'm luckier than most people. I don't know what you've experienced in the past, but you've already reached this step. You're about to join the Myriad Appearance sect as a formal disciple, and you have a high chance of becoming a true disciple. Why can't you relax and gamble?" However, Li Qingshan smiled. "If you knew how I got to this step, you wouldn't have advised me to relax. However, you're right about one thing. Once gambling starts, it can't be stopped. If you can't win in the end, then lose everything." Ruan Yaozhu pitifully said, "Don't you feel that living like this is hard?" Li Qingshan said, "Although it's hard, it's also interesting." Ruan Yaozhu blinked, wanting to say something but hesitating. In the end, she still said, "You're a good person. I hope you can win in the end." Li Qingshan said, "I'll be counting on your auspicious words." We're almost at the Myriad Appearance sect. The 9-colored deer flew through the sea of clouds, and Li Qingshan followed it down. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. On the distant sea surface, there was a bright ball of fire burning, illuminating the dark clouds that shrouded the night like a mirage. As they approached the ball of fire, the 9-colored deer lowered its altitude. It was almost like it was galloping on the surface of the sea, stepping on the waves to advance, quickly skimming over the sea surface. Li Qingshan gradually saw the true appearance of the ball of fire, but he was a little doubtful of his eyes. This was because it wasn't an ethereal and quiet celestial mountain or spiritual island like he had imagined, but a glorious metropolis. Buildings rose from the ground one after another, but they were also full of carved beams and painted rafters, with arched eaves and corners. Everywhere, there were gardens, flowers, and trees, like a classical garden that had changed from a flat surface to a 3-dimensional one. The buildings were connected by long bridges. Below the bridges, There were winding rivers and continuous lakes, like a pearl necklace. Suddenly, it turned into a waterfall that poured down hundreds of feet, like a jade dragon leaping, and the sound of the waves could be heard for hundreds of miles. It was more spectacular and incredible than any city he had seen in his previous life. On the top of the mountain in the center of the island, there was a tall building that was thousands of feet tall. In its majesty, it also had the power to soar into the clouds. The top of the building had indeed sunk into the clouds, and all the buildings surrounded it like stars surrounding the moon. Chapter 1385. Drizzles of rain fell from the dark clouds, making the air even more moist and cool. The dense spirit chi made people feel relaxed, even breathing became much easier. Plus or minus, the 9-colored deer slowed down and trod on the magnificent stone bridge that spanned thousands of meters and was hundreds of meters wide, arriving at Wanxiang City. A huge waterfall flowed down from both sides of the bridge and into the deep, gloomy valley. Perhaps because it was already late at night, there was no one on the stone bridge. From afar, the city looked extremely glorious, but it was instead a bit quiet amidst the rumbling of the waterfall. Even though Li Qingshan didn't know much about the qi observation technique, he could feel the condensation of qi that reached extremely high into the sky. This wasn't a city for mortals, but a sacred land for cultivators. I'll send you off here. You should know the rest of the process. Once you've obtained the identity of a formal disciple, you can come to my 100 Herb Garden to take a look. I might be able to give you a job there. 100 Herb Garden. Li Qingshan nodded to show that he remembered. He watched as Ruan Yaozhu left on the deer and stepped into Wanxiang City alone. The terrain of the city was extremely complicated, twisting and turning like a maze. Sometimes he passed through corridors and gardens, sometimes he went down bridges. Since he couldn't fly, Li Qingshan had to rely on the spirit turtle's powerful divination ability to find the path to the sky. On the way, he encountered a few patrolling teams of guards. Li Qingshan suspected that they were Leng Yuan's subordinates, so he carefully avoided them to avoid unnecessary trouble. He didn't want to go to the sky, as he didn't have the qualifications yet. Only formal disciples had the right to enter the sacred land of the Wanxiang sect, and formal disciples happened to be the lowest limit. So you're Li Qingshan, the first place of this year's entrance examination. Why are you here so early? In the cold and empty hall, the cultivator in charge of welcoming had an equally cold expression. It was obvious that Li Qingshan's sudden arrival had disrupted some of his arrangements. After confirming Li Qingshan's name, he became a bit warmer. Although there were many formal disciples in the Wanxiang sect, they still had some status. However, he still had some status. Even if he met a successor disciple, he would still address him as a junior brother. As for this guide, his status in the Wanxiang sect was only that of a disciple who had just entered the sect. Li Qingshan said, "Senior brother Ledin wants to make a bet with me, so he urged me to hurry over." I see. A hint of a smile appeared on the male cultivator's face. There seemed to be some pity in his eyes as he said, "You haven't even joined the sect yet you dare to make a bet with senior brother Lution. How dare you?" He did not even ask what the stakes were, seemingly certain that Li Qingshan would lose. Besides, he was just a nascent soul cultivator. How big could the stakes be? He was just being toyed with by senior brother Lution. Instead, he talked about Lution's strange stories. Every time he gambled, Lution would win. His opponents included human immortals and ghost immortals. Among them was the name of one gambler. Even Li Qingshan felt that it was like a thunderclap piercing his ears. It said that senior brother Lishan's lifespan was already at its end. He made a bet with one of the 10 great marshals of the netherworld, Oxhead Abian, beside the Yellow Springs Road and won 300 years of lifespan. Oxhead Abian? Oxhead Horseface? Li Qingshan's eyes widened. This sounded way too familiar. You finally heard of this. You're not too ill-informed. There's no helping it. We cultivators are not as famous among mortals as the gods of the netherworld and netherworld. Black and white impermanence, Oxhead Horseface, 10 kings of hell. Li Qingshan muttered to himself about these famous figures. His heart pounded. He suddenly realized that he had indeed stepped into a world of immortals and Buddhas. Although he was still very far away from the 9 heavens, he was clearly very close. However, it was clear that he was already very close. The distance between him and these famous figures was already within reach. Perhaps he would meet them by chance very soon. From the looks of it, did you ascend from the netherworld? As the guide spoke, he began his work in an orderly manner. Sometimes he would bury his head and write furiously, and at other times he would pass a document to Li Qingshan for him to fill it out. Li Qingshan had too many secrets. He had to deal with some parts vaguely or even leave them blank. He originally thought that there would be trouble. However, he realized that the guide did not even look at them. You don't have to find it strange. These are not for me to see. Just fill them in casually. If you really don't want to fill them, you can leave them blank. Then who are they for? Are they just for archiving? After Spirit Venerable Guihai looks through them, these documents will be destroyed. Everything about you will naturally be left in Spirit Venerable Guihai's sea of consciousness. Who is Spirit Venerable Guihai? Li Qingshan was a little surprised. This Spirit Venerable Guihai was too bored. Through his observation, there were at least hundreds of thousands of people in Myriad Phenomenon City. You really know nothing about the Myriad Phenomenon sect. You actually don't even know about Spirit Venerable Guihai. It's my first time here. Please enlighten me, senior brother. Li Qingshan handed over a brass lot. The guide looked at the brass lot and then at him. He said with a smile, as expected of the first in the test. You sure are generous. However, forget it this time. It wasn't easy for you to dig out those essence magnets. Leave them for bribing those fellows from the Heavenly Abode Department. Thank you, senior brother. Li Qingshan sighed inwardly. Indeed, there were still good people. It's not a big deal. I'll tell you if you want to hear it. Spirit Venerable Guihai is a spirit immortal who has transcended 6 heavenly tribulations. He is our grand sect master's mount and has an extremely high status in our sect. He is on equal footing with the 2 sect masters. It can be said that he's an invisible sect master who guards heaven all year round. When you reach heaven, you will naturally see him. However, you have to be careful. Spirit Venerable Guihai is a natural god. His knowledge is as deep as the sea. No one in the sect can compare to him. He knows everything in the world. Furthermore, he's extremely talented. He's best at divination and avoiding calamity. Some of your information may be true, some may be false, some may be false. I can't understand it, nor can I be bothered to understand it. However, in Spirit Venerable Guihai's eyes, he can see everything clearly. Li Qingshan's heart stirred. Senior brother, may I ask what race Spirit Venerable Guihai is? Spirit Turtle. Li Qingshan thought to himself that he had indeed encountered someone from the same race. This wasn't much of a coincidence. There weren't many races that were natural gods to begin with. There were even fewer of them that formed a race. For example, the 3-legged golden toad and the 9-colored deer. Although their bloodlines were inferior to the phoenixes and spirit turtles, they were even rarer in numbers. After coming to the human realm, he encountered them. He didn't feel any joy from meeting someone from the same race. Instead, he was somewhat worried. It was difficult for him to estimate how powerful a spirit turtle that had transcended 6 heavenly tribulations and possessed a complete bloodline would have. This spirit turtle seemed to have a very rich reserve of knowledge and a master with the cultivation of a perfected immortal. His vague wording in the information would probably be seen through at a glance. Even if he left some blank space, it was possible for him to deduce a lot of information. However, it would be too obvious if he changed it now. Furthermore, he wouldn't be able to hide it when they met face to face. This was probably the greatest danger he had encountered since coming to the human realm. Once something went wrong, he would have no means of resisting. It was far more terrifying than the Essence Magnetic Mountain and the Earth Baneful Beasts. Perhaps from the moment he entered Myriad Phenomenon City, Spirit Venerable Guihai had been watching him. However, this was also a major opportunity to find the sinkhole. Spirit Venerable Gehai definitely knew how to enter the sinkhole and might even understand the prisoner of the sinkhole. Chapter 1386. However, as Ruan Yaozhu had said, once the game started, he couldn't stop until he won or lost his life. He could choose what to bet, but he couldn't choose not to bet. When he walked out of the cold hall, it was still drizzling, and the majestic sky was not far from him. There was a small badge in his palm, which was shaped like a cloud. It recorded everything about him, including his identity, status, and achievements. With this badge, he could enter many places in the nature sect freely and receive the benefits of a disciple who had entered the hall. He held the badge tightly and walked to the sky. He hoped that the guide cultivator was telling the truth. Junior brother Li, you don't need to worry too much. Except for the things related to the sky, Spirit Venerable Gehai rarely interferes with the sect's affairs. Even if you were a heinous demon, the Spirit Venerable wouldn't take a second look at you. But you don't look like one. Li Qingshan answered with a smile. If it was so easy to see through a demon, he wouldn't be a demon. He just hoped that Spirit Venerable Gehai would be deceived by his harmless appearance, and everyone would live in peace, even if he couldn't find any clues to enter the ultimate. After climbing hundreds of steps and stepping through the gate, the badge in front of his chest flashed slightly, and an invisible barrier opened for him. I'm afraid all the books in the world are here. As soon as he entered the building, he sighed from the bottom of his heart. Just the bottom floor had millions of books, piling up into mountains of books. It was a dazzling sight. Before he could even take a closer look, a refined female cultivator came up to him. May I ask if you're Li Qingshan? I am. May I ask who you are? Li Qingshan saw that the badge on her chest was slightly different from his. She was a disciple who had entered the hall. The Spirit Venerable has been waiting for a long time. He asked me to take you upstairs. The female cultivator examined Li Qingshan with a strange look. She had worked in the hall for many years, but she had never seen such a face. Otherwise, she would have had an impression of him. So, he must be a new disciple who had entered the hall not long ago. Since he was received by the Spirit Venerable in person, he must have some background. Li Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. What he feared would come true. The old tortoise had indeed noticed him, but there was no turning back. He maintained his composure and cupped his hands. Senior sister, please lead the way. Following the spiral staircase up layer by layer, by the time he reached the 6th floor, Li Qingshan's identity as a disciple was no longer sufficient, but the invisible barrier of the array still opened layer by layer for him. Then, it silently closed behind him. Once the worst happened, he would not be able to escape unscathed. Even without this sky, if a demonic immortal wanted to deal with him, it would be as easy as killing an ant. Along the way, he could not be bothered with admiring the various sights in the sky. He circulated the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression as hard as he could, repeatedly predicting the omens in his head, but he received no results at all. It was like a flying insect colliding against glass time and time again. After trying a few times, he gave up. Back then, his spirit turtle's method of sea suppression had only reached a rudimentary level, and it had already rendered the divination of a grandmaster of the school of yin-yang ineffective, let alone when he faced a true spirit turtle right now. With a cultivation of 6 heavenly tribulations, the invisible barrier of fate set down was not something he could break through right now. Before the results were revealed, fate was impossible to know. He just wondered whether the spirit sovereign of the seas had seen through the truth of fate or not. Originally, Li Qingshan thought he would have to go all the way to the very top, but he never expected the female cultivator to make her way down the stairs after only reaching the 16th floor, making her way towards the depths of the bookshelves. She arrived between 2 bookshelves, before a fortress constructed from piles of books. He bowed respectfully and said, "Reporting to Spiritual Master, I have brought him here." "All right. You can leave now." A calm, indifferent voice rang out from behind the books. The badge on the female cultivator's chest lit up slightly. Revealing a smile, Li Qingshan knew she had already received a contribution. Although it was just something as minor as leading the way, Serving this invisible sect master was clearly a contribution to the sect. The female cultivator turned around and bade farewell. She glanced deeply at Li Qingshan again before disappearing into the mountain of books. Li Qingshan did not take the initiative to speak, while the spirit sovereign of the seas remained silent as well. In the silence, there was only the sound of pages flipping rapidly. Whoosh, whoosh. Like autumn leaves, they rustled to the ground. If it were not for the sound, Li Qingshan basically would have doubted whether there was a person behind the mountain of books, as he could not sense any aura at all. He knew this was one of the characteristics of the spirit turtle, so he waited silently with great patience. All right, I've finished another 1,000 books. Whoosh. The thousands of books piled up into a mountain of books danced about like startled butterflies. Some of them brushed past Li Qingshan's face, ruffling his long, black hair. He stared into the depths of the books without moving at all. By the time all of the books had returned to their respective bookshelves, an old man in black clothes stood near Li Qingshan. His appearance was nothing special, and it was even very easy for people to forget about him. Only his deep, silent eyes stared at Li Qingshan, making him feel like he was in the deep sea, facing fate itself. All of his secrets could not be hidden from him. Li Qingshan was very familiar with such eyes. They were the eyes of the spirit turtle. The moment he saw those eyes, Li Qingshan understood one thing. It was meaningless to lie in front of him. He bowed. Disciple Li Qingshan greets Spirit Sovereign Guihai. Spirit Sovereign Guihai said, "You have my race's bloodline." It was not a question but a statement of fact. You just descended from the lower realm. Why did you come to the Myriad Phenomenon sect? For cultivation. What else? To find the path that leads to the sinkhole. Why? For cultivation. What else? The question and answer came to an abrupt halt. Li Qingshan fell silent for a moment. Sorry, I can't answer this question. Spirit Sovereign Guihai was unsurprised. Li Qingshan, I can't completely understand your destiny, but it's not because of your ability. Li Qingshan was speechless. Was it because he was a transmigrator? Or was it because he was already involved in a huge dispute that involved many important figures above the 9 heavens? This old turtle obviously couldn't understand it. However, not being able to understand it is the most troublesome. However, I sense the shadow of calamity from you. Li Qingshan said, blessings are accompanied by calamities, and calamities are accompanied by blessings. Spirit Sovereign Guihai was unmoved as he said coldly, put down the badge and leave. Never return. Pretend you never came here. Chapter 1387. If regular nascent soul cultivators received a warning like that from a demon immortal, they would probably flee immediately, never daring to look back. However, Li Qingshan mocked loudly, as expected of the Spirit Turtle clan. How cowardly! Spirit Sovereign Guihai was not angered. He stared at him with a deep, indifferent gaze, as if he was facing the entire ruin's end. The pressure he gave off was more terrifying than any aura. Li Qingshan's smile vanished. I can leave, but I have a question I hope you can answer truthfully, Senior. Spirit Sovereign Guihai said, ask away. Li Qingshan took a step forward and faced the gaze that was as cold as an abyss. He questioned, why don't you kill me? Spirit Sovereign Guihai fell silent for a moment. Just as you said, the Spirit Turtle clan is filled with cowardly people. With such a great difference in cultivation, he was still unable to grasp the principles of fate. It could only be said that there were many factors beyond his grasp at work. It was even accompanied by the shadow of calamity. The meaning behind it was very profound. A mere nascent soul cultivator. Even if he risked his life, what right did he have to make him feel calamity? Li Qingshan said, then aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Spirit Sovereign Guihai's cold gaze wavered slightly. It was like an ant provoking a dragon. It was completely unreasonable. Li Qingshan's expression did not show any provocation. Instead, he became calm and indifferent, identical to Spirit Sovereign Guihai. The bloodline of the Spirit Turtle flowed silently through his body. This is not a foolish threat. With your intelligence, you should be able to tell what kind of person I am. I've come to the Myriad Phenomenon sect to cultivate after so much difficulty, but I was mercilessly turned away. How can I not feel resentful? If I fulfill Ling Yun's ambitions in the future, how will you live? I originally had no ill will towards the Myriad Phenomenon sect, but I suddenly felt ill will for no reason. It's a blessing or a curse. Please consider it carefully, Senior. He spoke very honestly, but it was like a naked threat. Furthermore, a single thought from the other party could doom him to eternal damnation. Spirit Venerable Guihai said indifferently, as expected of my clan's bloodline. You know our temperament well, but do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? Li Qingshan said calmly, if Senior really wants to shut me out, why don't you just kill me with one strike? That would be much more satisfying. At the very least, you would be able to avoid the immediate future trouble. The two of them were obviously at daggers drawn, and their lives were on the line, but it seemed like they were talking about something unrelated to others. A visible future threat? Spirit Venerable Guihai said, then what's the invisible future threat? Senior, you'll know once you kill him. If another human immortal had been there, Li Qingshan would never have said something like that. If the human immortal had lost his temper, he might just kill the human immortal or use some other method to search the human immortal's soul. However, he possessed the spirit turtle bloodline, so he took advantage of the calm and cautious nature of the spirit turtle clan. Since Spirit Sovereign Guihai was wary, he wouldn't kill him no matter what. This gamble seemed extremely dangerous, but it was worth it. It could even be said that he had absolute confidence in winning. The worst outcome would be maintaining the status quo and being chased out of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. He did not rely on luck to get to where he was today. Spirit Venerable Guihai said, then what do you think? It's better to plant flowers than to plant thorns. It's better to show kindness than to accumulate grudges. I, Li Qingshan, am not a person who returns kindness with enmity. Even if I summon any calamity, I will bear it alone. It has nothing to do with the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Perhaps one day, the Myriad Phenomenon sect will need my care. Even if it's to seek fortune and avoid calamity, why not keep me under your watch? Everything is under your control. If there's a day when I harm the Myriad Phenomenon sect and Senior feels that killing me is better than keeping me alive, you can do so at any time. If others were to hear that, they would laugh their heads off. Spirit Venerable Guihai also smiled faintly. My master lives above the 9 heavens and is in charge of Emperor Vast Heaven's study. He transcends the 6 realms and is not part of the 5 elements. He has also attended the Buddhist ancestors' Yulanpan assembly and heard of the Tao ancestors' primordial chaos Tao fruit. He only greets the 18 arhats and is on equal footing with the 10 Yama kings. All he befriends are immortals. Kid, you actually said that you want to take care of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. What a joke. Li Qingshan said, even immortals need people to do it. Who can predict what will happen in the future? Furthermore, the sea doesn't stop a trickle from flowing. Given how impressive the Myriad Phenomenon sect is, doesn't it still need to recruit disciples? I'm not talented, but I will definitely make some contributions. Spirit Venerable Guihai pondered for a long time. Even with his deduction abilities, he found it difficult to make a decision. Although this kid's cultivation level wasn't high, he was of great importance. He did not know who had planted this chess piece. Before there were obvious benefits and disadvantages, he was absolutely unwilling to make a move. However, it was precisely because of the importance that he was unwilling to keep him here. Otherwise, even if a demon emperor wanted to join the Myriad Phenomenon sect, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Be it deduction or prophecy, it was ultimately impossible to predict everything in the world. Otherwise, the spirit turtle race wouldn't need to hide in the deep sea. At this moment, he needed to be cautious. All right, you can stay. Li Qingshan's calm expression gradually melted as he revealed a smile. An indescribable joy rose in his heart. In this battle with the demon immortal, he had won another round. He knew very well how difficult it was to change a spirit turtle's mind. No matter how confident he was, he had to risk his life. Now that he had passed another round, he was taking another step forward. Fighting with the heavens, fighting with the earth, and fighting with humans was an endless joy. A great man would never lie to me. Spirit Venerable Guihai suddenly asked, "What cultivation technique do you cultivate?" This was another crucial question. Li Qingshan naturally wouldn't reveal the 9 transformations of the demons and gods. He said frankly, the Extreme Emperor's Record of World Destruction, also known as the Extreme Emperor's Record of the World. I'm willing to offer it to the heavens. Hand it over. Yes. Li Qingshan recorded the cultivation technique into a jade slip and handed it over with both hands. Spirit Venerable Guihai seemed to have only probed it slightly before taking a deep look at Li Qingshan. What an interesting cultivation technique. It has given me some inspiration. I can perfect another heavenly book. The badge on Li Qingshan's chest flashed slightly as he gained a considerable contribution. Following that, he received an equally considerable bookmark. He understood that this was Spirit Venerable Guihai's main job in guarding this heaven. He had to collect all sorts of cultivation techniques and constantly perfect the myriad phenomenon heavenly book. He couldn't help but be delighted. He knew quite a number of cultivation techniques. There was still a world behind him. If he could offer all these cultivation techniques, wouldn't he be promoted to a legacy disciple in minutes? He immediately offered up the Demon Suppression Statuary and the Demon War Statuary. Spirit Venerable Guihai took a look but said, "The cultivation techniques of the fighting fiend race have been gathered in this heaven. This Demon Suppression Statuary is rather interesting, but its value isn't high." This time, Li Qingshan only obtained a few mystic wood bookmarks. The contribution points were pitifully low. He might as well have dug out a few essence magnets. This heaven had stood for countless years. Above it was a perfected immortal grand sect master. Below it was Spirit Venerable Guihai's incessant inference. Below it was the accumulated contribution points of past disciples. Ordinary cultivation technique books were no longer of any value. They had to be extraordinary, or they had to be very powerful and brilliant. The Extreme Emperor's Record of World Destruction was a powerful cultivation technique to begin with. Furthermore, it was brewed during the destruction of the world. It had greater value when compared to the original Extreme Emperor's Record of the World. Chapter 1388. Senior, may I ask, if I want to read the heavenly book, which level should I go to? What's the price? Li Qingshan had already decided to strengthen the human cultivation method as an important part of increasing his own strength, and this heavenly mountain was exactly what he needed the most right now. The heavenly book needs to be exchanged with bookmarks. Do you have any? Thank you, senior brother Lutian, for lending me so many green jade lots. Li Qingshan smiled. It seemed like this old turtle didn't know everything. Prophecy and divination weren't omniscient. Spirit Venerable Guihai closed his eyes and concentrated for a moment. When he opened his eyes again, there was a clear light in them. I see. What a big gamble. What a big investment. I have a heavenly book here that is suitable for you. Li Qingshan asked, "What arcane book?" Unfettered heavenly scripture. Unfettered sutra. Li Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. According to what Luo Ho Xiaoming had said, the Extreme King's Records of the World and the Extreme King's Records of World Destruction contain the will and path of the Mahesvara Demon Lord. Could it be that this Book of Freedom corresponded to it? Not bad. Coincidentally, the cultivation technique that you contributed gave me some inspiration and helped me perfect this heavenly tome. Senior, please introduce the contents of this heavenly book. For example, what realm can one cultivate it to? Li Qingshan humbly asked for guidance, greatly impressed by Spirit Emperor Guihai. In other words, in such a short time, Spirit Emperor Guihai had thoroughly understood the Extreme King's Records of the World and the Extreme King's Records of World Destruction. He had also perfected the Book of Freedom. This kind of deduction ability was simply insane. For so many years, he had only cultivated the records of the Extreme King's World Destruction. It was already difficult for him to combine the two techniques, let alone combine them. Now that he had a better and more complete technique in front of him, he couldn't help but feel that coming to the Wanxiang sect was the right decision. Your cultivation technique is known as the ultimate emperor. Thus, this heavenly book could be considered to be at the extreme immortal realm and could reach the extreme immortal realm. Although I can't deduce a higher realm, I can definitely have greater development. The Mahasvara heavenly demon master resided at the top of the world of lust, and because he had attained Mahasvara, he was known as the Lord of 3,000 worlds, being both good and evil at the same time. Being both a god and a devil, combining life and death into one to attain the realm of great freedom. Of course, this unfettered heavenly tome alone won't be enough to obtain great freedom. To be precise, it's only minor freedom at most, but it's already very rare. The Great Freedom Heavenly Demon Master's path isn't just his path, it's also one of the 3,000 great Daos. Not only does it suit your temperament, but it also suits your current cultivation at the same time. At the very least, it won't cause your current cultivation to go to waste. Do you want it? Li Qingshan replied without hesitation, "Of course I do. Bring me 850 green jade lots." "So expensive." Li Qingshan grinned. This was daylight robbery. The bookmarks he had obtained from the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction and the Extreme Emperor's record of the world didn't even amount to a fraction of what he had obtained. Was this old bastard trying to mess with him? Cultivation methods are the foundation of cultivation. Do you think it's that easy to obtain a set of cultivation methods? That makes sense. 850 it is. Li Qingshan thought about his own 9 transformations of demons and gods and Little An's path of white bone and great beauty. He had to admit this. A set of powerful and suitable cultivation methods could only be obtained with great fortuitous encounters. It was already fortunate that he could directly exchange for it. Everyone knew the price of the heavenly tome in the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Spirit Sovereign Gehai was in charge of the sect, so he probably wouldn't scam him in such a place. Thus, he obediently took out 850 green jade lots. Spirit Sovereign Gehai casually accepted it and gave him a jade scroll. Li Qingshan skimmed through it. He found it profound and indescribable. As he comprehended it further, all sorts of illusions appeared in front of him. Sometimes it was the vast starry sky, sometimes it was corpses and blood. Sometimes it was the horrifying tragedy of the destruction of the world, sometimes it was the youthful vigor of saving the world, all sorts of illusions condensed into images of gods and demons. Some were gentle, some were terrifying, some were dancing kings, some were beast lords. For a moment, it was as if a group of demons were dancing wildly, shaking his mind. He could not help but want to dance with them. There was an unparalleled joy in his chest that kept expanding, almost bursting out of his limbs and bones, rising beyond the clouds and filling up the entire world. Spirit Sovereign Gehai silently observed Li Qingshan. He did not remind him how dangerous it was for him to casually read the entire Heavenly Tome of Freedom at his current cultivation level. The Heavenly Tome of Freedom was probably the most dangerous and unfathomable of the myriad phenomenon Heavenly Tome. It was the one that could easily cause one to go berserk. It was filled with contradictions and arguments, chaos and impermanence. If one was careful and cautious, fearful and hesitant, it would be difficult for one to be free. If one were to laugh in joy and dance with it, one would definitely fall into madness and confusion. Even though he had spent a lot of effort to complete the derivation, it was only a prototype. The path of the Great Freedom Demon Lord was not something anyone could walk. However, ever since Li Qingshan started cultivating, the battle between gods and demons in his heart had never stopped. The ferocity of the tiger demon made him bloodthirsty and warlike. He liked the freedom of the ape demon the most, but he could not destroy the benevolence of the Qilin. Layers of demonic thoughts and divinity were constantly fighting and pulling at each other. He was once known as the Hero King. He used novels to spread martial arts and wanted to make all living beings equal. He was once kind and wanted to save the world. However, he did not hesitate to destroy the world to fight a strong enemy. He never fell into a dilemma and could not extricate himself. He did not change his original heart and had no regrets or complaints. To a certain extent, this heavenly tome of freedom could be said to be tailor-made for him. At the very least, it would not be so easy for him to go berserk. He retracted his divine thoughts from the jade scroll and did not seem to be reluctant to leave the feeling of freedom. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Senior. This technique is indeed wonderful. I will cultivate it well and strive to reach the next level." He could not help but feel glad that he made this bet with Letion. Otherwise, he did not know how many years he would have to work for the Myriad Phenomenon sect to obtain this heavenly tome of freedom. Time was really too important to him. The benefits of this bet were already showing. Spirit Venerable Guihai pondered and said, "The warning was indeed unnecessary. This child has a strong and resolute heart. No ordinary person can compare to him. He is an unparalleled talent. If he does not fall, he will definitely have a great opportunity. He will not just be a direct disciple of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. I do not know if this is a blessing or a curse for the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Let me observe him carefully." He waved his hand indifferently and said, "If there is nothing else, you can leave. Don't disturb my reading." He turned and left. Li Qingshan had achieved his goal of staying in the Myriad Phenomenon sect and obtained an extremely important heavenly tome. He should have been satisfied, but he felt a sense of loss as if he had missed something important. He glanced at the bookshelves on both sides that were dozens of feet tall and reached the dome. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. He recalled the thousands of books that flew toward him like butterflies. With his extremely strong memory, he searched through the books on the bookshelves and discovered something strange. Most of those books were not secret manuals of cultivation techniques, but all kinds of legends, historical stories, and stories of the same kind. He shouted at Spirit Venerable Guihai's back, "Wait!" Spirit Venerable Guihai turned around with his hands behind his back. He did not move and his head almost turned half a circle. "What else is there?" Chapter 1389. How is it? Spirit Venerable Guihai looked at him curiously. This was because the Myriad Phenomenon sect's two sect masters had been following Elder Heaven Book above the 9 heavens for many years. Only he guarded the 9 heavens all year round. Firstly, it was to protect the sect and prevent foreign invasions. Secondly, it was to perfect the Myriad Heavenly Book and accumulate knowledge for cultivation. He was a quiet and inactive person to begin with, so this job was very suitable for him. His main source of entertainment was reading. Among all the different types of books, only fresh and interesting stories could stand the test of time, allowing him to maintain his interest. As for the other types of books, be it poems, songs, or exquisite treatises, his wisdom and experience were enough to surpass most authors in the world. They were not worth reading at all. And this hobby of his was known by everyone in the sect. Therefore, disciples would often gather stories and contribute them in exchange for contribution bookmarks to satisfy his little hobby. In essence, the massive Myriad Phenomena sect was meant to serve Elder Heavenly Tome, Spirit Sovereign Guihai, the 2 sect masters, and a few others. Li Qingshan said excitedly, "I'm a novelist." Hey, that's odd. The corners of Spirit Venerable Guihai's mouth curled up slightly. He had probably smiled more today than he usually did in a year. It's true. Li Qingshan originally wanted to say that he had written books, but on second thought, they were basically copied and handed over to Little and to polish. It had nothing to do with him. Spirit Venerable Guihai would probably see through him the moment he said it, so he was too embarrassed to lie in front of him. Spirit Venerable Guihai looked at him indifferently with a mocking expression. Just now, when Li Qingshan was provoking him, the mockery was not as intense. "Heh, you are really a newborn calf that isn't afraid of tigers. Do what you need to do." Spirit Venerable Guihai waved his hand like he was shooing away a fly. He did believe Li Qingshan a little when he said that he could cultivate to become a perfected immortal. As for being a novelist, forget it. Even with my eyes closed, I can tell that you have some ink in your stomach. I said that I would contribute to the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Senior, you are right in front of me. Why give up what is near for what is far away? I wonder if I can get bookmark contributions by contributing a novel? Li Qingshan looked at Spirit Sovereign Guihai's eyes. It was like looking at a treasure trove filled with bookmarks. Of course, there was also a huge amount of contribution points. If it's interesting, it's worth reading. It's better than ordinary cultivation technique manuals. Spirit Sovereign Gehai clearly didn't believe that Li Qingshan had anything worth reading. Alright, I understand. Senior, please lend me the jade slip again. What are you doing? Li Qingshan's eyes sparkled. I want to present the book. The jade slip streaked through the air and fell into Li Qingshan's hand. He immediately closed his eyes and concentrated. He began to input a novel into it. A moment later, he returned the jade slip to Venerable Sea Spirit. The Great Legend of the White Ape King. You wrote it? Spirit Venerable Gehai frowned and was slightly surprised. With his quick spiritual senses, he had read more than 100,000 words in the blink of an eye. Yes, what do you think, Senior? This was Li Qingshan's only original novel. He was quite serious about it. The words are crude and the characters are dull. It's even mixed with a bunch of low-level martial arts techniques. It's really long and stinky. In the blink of an eye, Spirit Sovereign Gehai had read hundreds of thousands of words, but it was a series of bad reviews. Li Qingshan knew he was not cut out for this. The biography of the White Ape King had been written with the help of those messy, low-level martial arts techniques to attract readers. In the original miniature world, there were not a lot of people who would criticize the contents of the book, but this kind of evaluation still made him a little unhappy. At that moment, the badge on his chest lit up slightly, and a few mystic woodlots were thrown over. He grabbed them and looked at Spirit Sovereign Gehai in surprise. Spirit Sovereign Gehai said lightly, "But there are some good points. It wants to make the world harmonious and everyone is equal. It's quite benevolent and bold. At least it's long. It's worth a few mystic woodlots and a few contribution points. Alright, I'll accept this book." Although it was a little like dismissing a beggar, Li Qingshan was still very happy. Thank you, Senior. After all, this was his biological son. He had put a lot of effort into it. It was better to sell it than to be worthless. And it wasn't just a few mystic woodlots and a few contribution points, but a door that had been opened. Spirit Sovereign Gehai was about to leave when Li Qingshan said, "Senior, don't go. I still have more." Oh! What Li Qingshan contributed again was not the book he had written. In the 5 continents, the gods descended and searched the world. Since ancient times, there had been 100 schools of thought in the 9 states. Although the school of fiction had not been very prosperous, it had a long history. After a long period of time, it had also left behind many classic works. While Li Qingshan was talking to Spirit Sovereign Gehai, he used the will of the world god to search for these books and recorded them into a jade slip through his main body. The 5 continents and the human realm were separated by an invisible realm. They could only communicate with each other through the heaven-climbing vine. Otherwise, they could forget about bringing over even a grain of sand. However, the main body and the avatar shared the same knowledge and memories, and that was enough. This book is quite interesting. The words are also much smoother and more beautiful. Spirit Sovereign Gehai nodded slightly and revealed a look of satisfaction. He even slowed down his reading speed and seemed to enjoy it. However, he finished reading in an instant. The badge on Li Qingshan's chest lit up again. This time, he had obtained a few brass lots. They weren't that rare or precious, but it was a very good start. He could already vaguely see Lution's misfortune of losing the bet, so he immediately offered another book. The Spirit Emperor Gehai glanced at him and became interested. He just gave Li Qingshan an extra jade slip so that he could continue inscribing and reading without stopping. In fact, he rarely had such an opportunity to read so many high-quality novels in a row. This was because he had high standards. It was difficult for the novels collected by ordinary disciples to catch his eye, so the rewards weren't that high. As for the study companions, attendants, and servants, although they valued this reward, they didn't even have the qualifications to enter heaven. Although they could offer some books through the book collection office, the range of their activities was very narrow, and the books they could search for were limited. As for the disciples who had advanced to the next level, they often didn't think much of this reward. If they had the free time, they might as well do something else and obtain more contribution bookmarks. As for the inherited teachings disciples, there was no need to mention them. Due to various reasons, as well as the fact that he read books too quickly, he often had to repeatedly read some old books. He knew very well that these books were not written by Li Qingshan. He could also roughly guess that Li Qingshan had brought them from a certain world. These novels came from the accumulation of a world, which was why they had such quantity and quality. Chapter 1390. It's here, it's here. This was the first time Li Qingshan realized that inscribing jade slips was such an arduous task. He had to constantly maintain his focus and could not slack off at all. Chasing after books was like carrying something that was not very heavy. In the beginning, he did not feel anything, but as time passed, his hands and feet would turn numb. He had to rely on the spirit turtle transformation to hold on. More importantly, the emblem on his chest flickered with light and the bookmarks. There were not many of them. There were only some mystic wood, brass, and silver lots. There was not even a single green jade lot. However, Spirit Venerable Guihai was quick to read the information. In a moment, he had accumulated a huge amount. His contribution points were also rising rapidly. Later on, Spirit Sovereign Guihai found it troublesome and asked, "How much more do you have?" Li Qingshan answered, "As much as you want." Spirit Sovereign Guihai directly gave him a huge sum of contribution points and 10 green jade lots. He said, "If it's enough, I will reward you separately. If it's not enough, you will be deceiving a senior. Not only will I have to return everything, but I will also punish you heavily." "Don't worry. I have plenty." Li Qingshan agreed immediately. However, he felt a little worried after thinking about it. "I'll respect you as a senior, but don't scam me." That was because the value of every book was different. It was all up to Spirit Sovereign Guihai. If he only gave mystic wood lots when he should have given brass, there was nothing Li Qingshan could do about it. Spirit Sovereign Guihai said unhappily, "Darn brat, you are arrogant and think too little of others. I'm a book lover. Even if it's for the sake of the author, I will not belittle the value of these books for some petty gains. I want as much as you have. Just give it to me." All right. In the blink of an eye, the sky lit up. A night had passed. The surging ocean carried the myriad phenomenon sect as the roiling red clouds surrounded the sky. And in the east, there was a stone wall over 100 feet tall. In front of it was a large square. The stone wall was smooth and glossy. Only the words myriad phenomenon ranking were engraved at the top. As the red sun rose above the East Sea, the sunlight gradually shone on the stone walls from top to bottom, reflecting the names one by one. The names were lined up one by one, and the name at the top was purple. It gradually became lighter, and after 20 or so names were listed, it turned into a sky blue color. It gradually became lighter again, and another few hundred names were listed. At the bottom was a golden color, and there were thousands of them. The pyramid was generally divided into 3 levels. They respectively represented the 10,000 elephant sect's true disciples, inner disciples, and ascension disciples. The 2 words Lation were glowing purple and were surprisingly ranked 8th on the list. This represented his extremely high status in the myriad sect. In the Wanxiang sect, seniority didn't depend on one's cultivation level or how early one entered the sect. It was all in this list. Li Qingshan had only been a disciple for less than a day. Even though he had contributed a lot of primary magnets in the entrance examination and was not far from becoming a chamber disciple, he was still at the very bottom of the list. The light yellow names seemed to be melting in the sunlight. There were still a few thousand names between him and the green middle rank. This once again proved that the words of the casino owner couldn't be trusted. If becoming a chamber disciple was so easy, why would there be thousands of people struggling here, not to mention the few true disciples? However, his name only stayed at the bottom of the list for a very short period of time. To be precise, it was only for an instant. Then it immediately jumped up a few hundred places. The scene was quite eye-catching. Several hundred names moved down one place at the same time. The plaza was bustling with people, and there were also many people standing under the stone wall to watch. This scene immediately attracted the attention of many people, and they all let out gasps of surprise. The entire plaza was immediately alarmed. Not knowing what had happened, they all looked at the stone wall and noticed a light yellow name. Li Qingshan, who is that? Never heard of him. I've never heard of such a person among the study companions generation. He's probably new. Isn't the entrance examination just recently? The examination just ended, and the guide boat has just arrived. Look at the group of people in front of the stone wall. They're still following the guide around, so how could they have gotten so many contribution points? One of the study companions must have gotten some kind of opportunity. There are tens of thousands of study companions in the sect. How can you remember all of them? Maybe. Look, he's still moving up. Sigh, the seniority is growing so fast. I was a senior brother just now, but now I'm his junior brother. What kind of opportunity did he get so many contribution points in a row? After a night of effort, Li Qingshan's name didn't rise as fast as before, but it was still climbing at a speed visible to the naked eye. He surpassed one senior brother after another, and gained one junior brother after another, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. Nie Xiuwen and Nie Xiuwu were standing side by side in front of the stone wall. The younger brother, Nie Xiuwu, had a pale face, and the scars left by Li Qingshan's violent beating had yet to disappear. The older brother, Nie Xiuwen, on the other hand, had a black face, so it was hard to tell. After fighting openly and secretly for a while, they actually didn't break up. Instead, after half a day and a night of sailing, they were on good terms with each other and were still good brothers. According to the usual practice, the disciple in charge of guiding them would bring them around Wanxiang City for sightseeing. This plaza was their first stop, mainly to view the Wanxiang ranking, so that they could understand their status in the sect and motivate them a little. Because the two brothers had high cultivation, they were at the front of the crowd. They looked up at the name and couldn't help but open their mouths. As the name continued to rise, their heads were raised higher and their mouths were opened wider and wider. Brother, is it that Li Qingshan? Who else could it be other than him? Sigh, it's not a shame to lose to him. You guys are from the same batch. Do you know where this junior brother Li came from? The guide disciple was the one Li Qingshan saw last night. He was also extremely shocked. Where did he go last night? How did he get so many contribution points in one night? If this goes on, it won't be long before I have to call him senior brother when I see him. The two brothers looked at each other. They had also heard about the big bet. After all, they were nascent soul cultivators, so Lutian and Li Qingshan didn't deliberately lower their voices. However, they decided to keep quiet. Not to mention Lutian, just Li Qingshan alone was not someone they should offend. Senior brother, we don't know either. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. Don't try to fool me with that. The guide disciple was a bit dissatisfied, but he didn't force them. Although one of them was an attendant and the other was a servant, it was only a matter of time for them to become disciples with their cultivation. Su Tong had a special ability in this aspect, and she heard it clearly yesterday. She suspected that it was Sister Wan Yaozhu who helped them. Alas, it's really good to be under a big tree. I also need to find a big tree to lean on. In the crowd at the back, among the envious faces, a trace of resentment flashed in the eyes of a monk. He was bald, but he was wearing a Taoist robe. He was the muscular old Taoist who had been burnt black all over. Because of Li Qingshan's kindness, he barely survived and almost crawled out of the Yuan Ci mountain. He didn't have a piece of Yuan Ci iron in his hand, and he luckily passed the entrance assessment based on Lutian's promise to Wan Yaozhu. He had a strong body and abundant blood qi, so he seemed to recover faster than the two brothers. However, his hair and eyebrows couldn't grow out at once, and his internal injuries were very serious. Not only was his cultivation greatly damaged, but his lifespan was also affected. He hated Li Qingshan very much. Because he was afraid that the two brothers would secretly attack him, he hid in the crowd, and he was frequently looked at, which made him feel ashamed and resentful. Seeing that his enemy was promoted step by step, but he had to start from a servant, he hated him even more. His internal organs felt like they were being cut by knives and burned by fire, which aggravated his internal injuries, and his face turned green and red. The two brothers seemed to feel something and looked back, only to see a bald head gradually retreating into the crowd, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. It's not that easy to withstand the wind and fire joint attack of our brothers. Now that the wind is breaking and the fire poison is attacking his heart, he still dares to provoke the devil in his heart. This old man can forget about going through the fourth heaven's punishment in his life. The muscular old Taoist quietly retreated from the crowd, pulled one of them and asked, "May I ask where can I see senior brother Lu Tian? You're new here, right? Why do you ask?" "I have something to report to senior brother Lu Tian. At this time, he should be in the Chaotic Fate workshop. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.